Welcome to Franchise Killer, a podcast where we pick movie franchises or wannabe franchises, review them film by film, and see where things went wrong.
All right.
I am the host, Reese. You are?
David.
You are?
Irina.
And you are?
Rajetti. Noah.
And way off in a distant land we have...
AJ.
All right. And today we are talking about Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest. Directed by Gore Verbinski, who also directed the first film in the franchise, along with Mouse Hunt, The Mexican, The Ring, Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, The Lone Ranger, and A Cure for Wellness. The movie stars Johnny Depp, Keira Knightley, Orlando Bloom, Jeffrey Rush, Jonathan Pryce, and Jack Davenport.
It's got a solid.
And actually, it has more than that. Stellan Skarsgård, and who am I missing?
Naomi Harris.
Bill Nighy?
Yeah, Naomi Harris. That's right.
Honestly, though, Gore Verbinski's movies, like, I know you read
They're
those
really
last
solid.
time, but reading them, all of those are very solid movies.
Yeah, he's a solid director.
Yeah, for a second I thought he had directed Wild Wild West, but I guess I watched the wrong movie again.
Dang it. No.
Well...
Wait, why Wild Wild West?
We might refer to you a couple times so you can just sing that Will Smith song for us or do a little rap.
Wait, I am curious. Why Wild Wild West? Where does that fit in?
Just the 3-word rhyme. Well, at least the last one rhyme.
Dead Man's Chest, Wild Wild West. Oh my gosh.
I get
Your
it.
connections are getting looser and looser.
That was actually on the fly because I completely forgot this time, and so that I just pulled out of a hat.
Hey, it works.
Anyway, on this podcast, we first go over our thoughts on the film before revisiting it for the episode. Then we dive into the story, break it down bit by bit, and talk about the more significant moments. Towards the end of the show, we give our brief reviews and numbered scores, along with an analysis on the health of the franchise and whether or not this film hurt it. So, guys, had you all seen Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, before this episode?
Most
David?
definitely.
I think, we all had. I saw it when it first came out, and I don't know how much we want to talk about this one beforehand.
Talk about your feelings going into it before.
I really liked it when I first saw it. I had a friend whose dad worked at Technicolor around this time, and he got an early screening of it, and so I actually got to go with my friend to go see this in theaters right before it came out.
You lucky duck.
Yeah.
Yeah, having friends.
And so, who has friends here?
What a traitor.
Yeah, it was a good time. I actually really, really liked the movie. So
Cool.
Okay.
All right.
Do you want me to summarize for us, or...
Well, we watched it.
Yeah, we all saw it in the theater on a family vacation, and I think all of us were very entertained by it at the time. Except maybe you, Irina?
Irina has opinions.
I specifically remember being disappointed.
Wow, upon first viewing of the film,
I
too.
did. I was disappointed.
I remember enjoying a lot of it, but then alternatively not liking some of the decisions they made.
I will say I was enjoying it up to a point, and then I was disappointed.
Oh, okay.
Left a sour note.
Yeah. But that changes now with this one.
For me, I do remember disagreeing with a couple of the character decisions in the sequel, but overall, I very much enjoyed it. It wasn't quite as much as the first, but
Don't show your hand.
No, this is how
it's
How he felt
about
before.
it.
Yeah.
Before.
All right.
If anyone thinks that this one's better than the first one, they deserve to be.
Hey, we have things
Put
to
in a
talk about,
home.
my friend.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's hold your opinion. AJ, how about you?
Yeah, I love this movie. It's better than the first.
You had.
He deserves to be put in a home.
Yeah,
he
so
is in a home.
this is actually one of the, I guess, rarer instances where I did see it in the theater as a kid. I have actually really distinct memories of being pretty disappointed coming out of the movie and I really have clear memories of my thoughts that I formulated at that movie and just kind of, I guess, not to give away too much too soon, but I had a strong feeling that the second movie was basically kind of a bridge to a third movie. Without having any kind of, or a lot of substance to stand up on its own. But that's my impression as, a kid seeing it in the theater.
Yeah, it does have a bit of that like middle chapter problem where it's doesn't really have the same 3-arc structure that you would normally expect from a film. It's kind of weird too because Curse of the Black Pearl is a complete story.
Yeah.
So the writers had the difficult task of trying to rejigger moments from The Curse of the Black Pearl into strands that can be picked up on and taken further with a sequel.
I knew it.
Not an easy job for our writers in this film.
This is something Irina and I talked about, which was the fact that you could tell that these weren't written in succession. Like, there was the first one that had a full story, but then it seemed like they were trying to shoehorn certain things the rest of the series.
The thing is, the first one doesn't not tease a sequel, but it also doesn't set up an overarching 3-film structure.
It doesn't seem like they were ready for it.
It sets up the potential revival of Barbossa, and that's about it. Anyway, are we ready to get into the story here?
Yeah. I am.
Ready.
All right, David, take it away.
All right. In Port Royal, the wedding of Will Turner and Elizabeth Swan is interrupted by the intrusion of Lord Cutler Beckett, chairman of the East India Trading Company. He presents arrest warrants for Will, Elizabeth, and now ex-Commodore Norrington for allowing the escape of Captain Jack Sparrow. Norrington has resigned and disappeared after losing the Navy's flagship HMS Dauntless in a hurricane while pursuing Jack. Beckett makes a deal with Will to release Elizabeth in exchange for the compass carried by Jack Sparrow. Meanwhile, on the Black Pearl, Jack is visited by Bootstrap Bill Turner. Bootstrap is now a crewman on the Flying Dutchman, in service of the dread Davy Jones. Bootstrap informs him that Jack's time for payment is now due for his bargain with Jones, in which Jack obtained the pearl. He is marked with the black spot and doomed to be prey of the monstrous Kraken.
A very solid intro, although not really keeping to the Pirates vibe.
I can agree with that in a way. I do think they have a Pirates vibe, but they go a little heavier. They got a little bit larger budget.
What I mean is that even the intro of Pirates of the Caribbean, my gosh.
Either one of those would have been fine.
Just run with it.
I know. It was more optimistic. And I do like the tonal change to an extent, but it was just kind of like upsetting to see where the end of Pirates of the Caribbean was and then see where it ended there. And oh, great. So you have a happily ever after in this one, then suddenly well, that's all gone, you know?
Well, you got to set up those stakes again, Noah.
I know. That's why it's bittersweet.
Yeah,
I think it's a solid intro, but
I think Beckett is a formidable villain that right off the bat you do not like this guy.
Oh, you hate him.
Okay, so here's the thing. I do like him because he's such a good. He plays his role.
Well,
perfectly.
you know what I mean. I'm I want to see that guy die.
I get.
That's what I mean by that.
He's got that punchable face.
The one thing I will say, though, is I think and we'll go into this later, I think he's a one-dimensional villain.
Yeah.
Versus Davy Jones, who has multiple
I
dimensions.
agree.
Yeah.
Gosh, yes.
Becket's just, nothing good. He's just, not even... Well, he doesn't even come off as human. He just comes off as, a demon.
Maybe I'm thinking of just the third one and translating that association. I know he's supposed to be a terrible guy, but I kind of like the way his character is.
Yeah.
I kind of like that kind of villain, even if it is more one-dimensional. Mm-hmm. You know?
I'm just gonna go back to this intro, but can I talk about how at first I thought the beginning was cool, oh look, a ruined wedding, but just how funny is it to actually use the phrase "rain on a wedding day"?
Oh my god!
I half expected an early 2000s emo band to just pop out and start singing a song.
Even Romance, get in there.
I didn't even think about that.
It's but I think visually it's really appealing, but it was almost a little too I don't know, emo for me. I'm not sure.
And it's also very subtly in slow motion.
Yeah.
It's not heavy slow-mo, but it's everything's falling a little, 0.1% slower than you would normally see it.
So yeah, my opinion on actually where they took this story is that they should have kept it to one villain. They should have picked Admiral Lord Beckett for either later or for this one.
I do agree
and
with you.
then
there.
had Davy Jones for the third or vice versa.
Yeah.
Because they kind of set up two villains. You're like, oh, this is the main villain. Oh, wait, no, he's not. It's Davy Jones.
But remember this guy.
But, yeah, exactly.
Well, I think they do kind of sideline Beckett for most of this. They reintroduce him in the second movie, but he has a bigger part in the second one.
Okay, yes. You mean the third one?
Third one, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, yes. But I think they should have just focused entirely on Davy Jones.
But you have to at least seed Beckett in this one.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, no, you don't have to.
You do, because
you don't.
He's actually crucial to a number of these characters
He
going
is
after
because
Jack.
they made him crucial in the writing.
So Irina and I talked about this because Irina, she holds a very similar perspective based on what we talked about. But it seems like you need him for the very beginning for initiating, but then you don't need him at all really after that.
Wait, no. But here's the thing: you actually don't. If they had written it differently, you wouldn't need Admiral.
Okay.
Why do you keep saying Admiral? It's Lord.
Lord, yeah, sorry.
Okay, so I don't mind Beckett at all. I think he does make sense in this storyline, but I just don't understand the plot vomit that he gives to Elizabeth at all. Just kind of, oh yeah, there's a conspiracy. You think that, cursed treasure is the only thing out there. I'm actually planning for something bigger. Like, why are you explaining all of this to her right now? Can you, like, they could have Beckett here, and you can be suspicious of him. Like, I don't know, this dude doesn't seem right. And then bring him back later.
I think you need him. This movie has a complicated plot, and it is even further complicated in the third film. I think you need every little bit of exposition that a character can give you to make sense of any of it.
Especially for a younger audience.
Yeah. I think having him do the vomit of the exposition, like you said, at least informs you that he is after this compass because the compass shows what you really want. And that's his...
Okay. I actually have a debate about that. I wish that they didn't say what the compass was for and that he just
Noah
wanted
likes
it.
mystery. He doesn't like answered questions.
No, I like answered questions at the right payoff moment.
Yeah.
That was not the right payoff moment.
Well, they didn't tell you at the moment. What
I know,
it was
but
for.
then they do in like the next scene.
Yeah.
Irina said kind of what was on my mind. They made him out to be the main villain and then decided, oh wait, actually no, we're going to change it to Davy Jones. Sure, they could have had him to spur the story at the beginning, but then they should have not really given all of that information about his motives yet. They should have saved that for the third movie. At least in my opinion.
She got him monologuing a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it was just kind of, But the thing I do like about him is that he is a smart villain. Like, he actually seems like he's intelligent enough to be able to scheme the way he does.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on in that. I know Reed said he didn't really like the exposition, but there's, based on the writing of the story, it seemed necessary.
I think Reese was saying, well, exposition in general, the way it's done whenever you have a character explaining it is usually a bit negative, but I think Reese was saying that we needed it for that one.
Well, I think it is necessary, and I'm glad that this actor is as good of an actor as he is.
Yeah, he did a good job.
Convey it in a way that doesn't seem completely shoehorned in there just to tell the audience something.
So I didn't actually take as much issue with it as y'all did. I thought it was an appropriate level of his involvement in the movie, and he probably had 3 major areas of screen time, I think. And I think his exposition, so to speak, his monologue, well, maybe a little bit over the top. Like I said, this is kind of for a younger audience who they probably don't know what letters of marque are and the history and the context of things. So it kind of establishes a backdrop on, kind of a launching point, really. Yeah.
You also get the sense that Beckett has such a huge ego that he loves just projecting his intelligence to other people.
Yeah.
Like, I just get that, like, if anyone's going to do exposition.
Complex.
He does remind me of Napoleon.
Yeah, and they do that shot where he's a little shorter. I don't know how tall Tom Hollander actually is, but they do kind of frame him where he does have kind of a short man syndrome.
I thought he did look really
visually.
short.
Oh, okay, that actor is actually relatively short. So
Speaking of Napoleon, both David and I were noting some distinct similarities to the Count of Monte Cristo's story.
It mainly had to do with the intro and how there was a wedding that was happening and that the groom was being apprehended and sent to jail at the time. And then also you have connections with Jack Sparrow at a secret prison.
So to sum up really quickly about Count of Monte Cristo. So Edmond Dantes, main character, is going to have a bride in Mercedes, and they're going to have their wedding, and then he gets taken away on false charges.
Yes.
Sounds familiar.
To prison. And then from there, he has that whole adventure. But that's where those similarities are the same and they end at that moment. But then the next scene is at a place that is eerily similar to Chateau d'If, which is where he is imprisoned.
Yes.
In the book. And that's where Jack escapes in very much the same way.
I would say that
as
that's where
Dantes.
that connection ends, though, because Jack Sparrow doesn't really go on this redemptive arc.
He doesn't,
or
but
quest for revenge.
But Will kind of does. It's not quite the same, but he's more of the Edmond Dantes type character.
Yeah. Okay, I can see the intro.
You're talking about him escaping in the coffin or the like.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess we should also talk about Bootstrap Bill. Are we on that?
Yeah, we're on that.
Oh yeah. I really like him in that.
Stellan Skarsgård again. He's a popular player in a lot of our episodes.
He's one of the actors that we can't praise him enough. But in general, I just used to kind of think nothing of him. But watching all these movies and seeing him in all the roles, he goes without enough praise.
Yeah, I guess I should also back up. How do we feel like the intro to Jack Sparrow holds up against his intro in the first movie? So the first movie we have him. The first thing we see is him basically coming into port.
Yeah.
And stepping onto the dock as the music plays. In this, we have him escaping this prison via a coffin, as you mentioned earlier, and shooting the bird on top, and then kind of making his way to the ship.
It fits.
Yeah. I feel like at this point I had no issue so far. So it still felt like true Jack Sparrow fashion.
It's like, how did he get here? And why is this like so comical? And where is this going? That's how I felt on both of those.
Yeah, I'll say I like it. And yet it still isn't as good as the first one, though.
I mean, you can't really
compare
top
it to the first one.
It's like they did another grand entrance in a different style, and I think that's
the first
fine.
one's just iconic.
Yet it wasn't over the top like you would expect from a sequel. I would say it is less dramatic, or it's about the same as the first one.
Yeah.
I would say I actually do agree with your first statement. It is less dramatic. However, it is just as ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Well,
anyway, back.
It retreads his kind of trope of why is the rum always gone? Oh, that's why. So it kind of, little wink and nod at you. Yes, we're already established on who I am, my character. I was kind of interested. He wasn't really phased at Bootstrap Bill being alive or, in his ship.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to know how the heck he got in there.
Okay, remember they teleport.
They
can teleport.
They can and can't depending on the part of the movie.
Yeah,
that's what I wrote that in my notes a number of times. Okay, so they're kind of like sea creatures.
Yeah,
how can they teleport? How can they phase through wood?
Let's take this moment
beyond
to establish that continuity is not really a factor in this movie.
Yeah, it's kind of clear.
Talking about character first appearances here, a weak point that I found was still kind of Will and Elizabeth their chemistry kind of being on shaky ground. Even though they're supposedly getting married, like their little dialogue in the prison scene just seemed like still adolescent.
It's
superficial.
It's still just kind of scripted. And
that said, I do think this movie kind of tackles or at least addresses the fact that maybe their chemistry isn't 100% because I would say their relationship kind of is on the rocks.
Yeah, David would take issue with that statement.
I don't take issue with that.
Well, that's what I want to bring it up now, like to have the baseline, and then when we explore that later, is like where did it start from?
Yeah.
See, this is a part in the movie that I would have a problem with, where if they do want Will and Elizabeth to be the strong leading couple that we're supposed to be fighting for, they would have tried to incorporate at least some kind of bonding scene between the beginning and this point. Like there has to be something to establish a connection where once they are divided, you're like, no, I don't want that part.
That's that jail scene.
No, but that doesn't work. That's not a bonding
movie.
scene. That's just, I have to go.
Yeah, I will
have
agree.
you already.
I did not feel any chemistry between them in this one.
I disagree, but I also think that a lot of it is reliant on the first movie. And if you didn't either watch the first movie or wait a long time, then that does get diminished a bit. But I do think they have.
Well, we watched it last week.
Yeah, the point that I made even in the first movie, that even still their chemistry was just kind of juvenile and superficial.
Yeah.
Well, just because it's juvenile. I mean,
Yeah,
Romeo
It's like,
and Juliet
well, the
was
thing is,
juvenile, but
the
it
first
was
one, the juvenile nature of their relationship makes sense. But if you're wanting them to get to this point where this is your leading role couple, you need to do something about that.
Yeah,
This is literally their wedding day.
Yeah. And so I feel like instead of a ruined wedding day where everyone's being, charged for crimes, instead of that as an intro, you at least need to incorporate, maybe since she's going to do some sword fighting, how about show them actually doing some sword fighting? Like he's actually teaching her something. And that way you can form some kind of bonding where they're actually sharing an experience together.
That actually would have been good. It would have made a lot more sense of all the sword fights she gets in with hordes of... Well, that's for later.
We'll get to.
Yeah. I thought it was funny, though, that the governor, Elizabeth's father, at the end of the last movie, he's like, he blesses their marriage and says, okay, yeah, he's a good man, even though, the Commodore was obviously a more socially more suited match. And then in this scene, he's just like, we'll take him or leave him.
Well, it seemed like it was more about because the desperate nature of the situation that he was like, look, I like the guy, but in this situation, it's do or die, and I'm taking you and me. Like, I don't care about him right now.
You have to really give him props for being a good
kind of
father.
An open dad,
Yeah.
So, also, before we move on to the next portion of the plot, this is where we realize Jack doesn't know what he wants as he looks at the compass and it's just swiveling in all different directions. And he has also attained a image of a key, which we don't know what that key is for just yet.
Drawing.
Why was that in the jail area that he was in? Like, why did that have...
That's the thing that I don't care. That's the thing I don't care to know.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fair.
The thing I don't think it's needed
It doesn't
information.
need to be
It's just like,
explained,
he's trying to attain this.
It just happens
He got
to be
there somehow.
It's just
in his
an
plan.
adventure we weren't there for.
That's fine.
And this is a thing that this movie continues to do well with Jack Sparrow, is it does not give you insight into how he became Jack Sparrow. He just kind of ends up in these places and lucks his way through stuff, but by also being clever in his own unique way.
So here's
just
where
a second,
I have
just a
contention.
second. Just a
All
second.
right, all right.
Well, us on this couch are fighting you on that couch.
I like that I don't know how he got this freaking paper, because I saw the first movie and I'm like, yeah, I believe that he got this paper. I don't know what his plan is, but whatever, I'm going with it. I don't need to know.
Yeah.
Like, all I need to know is how he's going to get to this key and then how he's going to get to the chest.
Right.
Like, it's not important.
The reason I have contention is that in the first one, you could tell that he almost always had some kind of thing going on in his mind. But then in this one, it just seemed increasingly that this is a weird situation I'm in. All right, I'll just do this.
Well, this time he doesn't have the compass guiding him.
No, but that's beside the point. It's more his intelligence that's different. They went more with the luck factor, less with the inherent.
There are still scheming moves he pulls in this.
I don't think people
okay,
get
okay,
There's the moment later on where he has Will Turner go on Davy Jones's boat and says that, hey, just tell him you're settling a debt for...
Yes, but the thing is, that's very, that's kind of different from what I'm meaning. It's more like situational intelligence. So, like, in that, it's like he had... I can get off the hook for this by using him, and you already know exactly what's going on. But in the first one, that first fight with Will Turner, you can see he has that thing with the footwork, and he lures him into a situation and then runs off.
Yeah.
So it's like a really situational kind of mental acuity that he's got. Whereas in this, it just seems like, this was lucky. This works towards my plan, but he's not actually. Thinking everything through.
Yeah. I think he's more... I don't think he has as much of a plan in this one, and that's the intention. That's the intention in the writing.
They just exchanged some of his intelligence for goofiness and a little bit of luck.
I think that's the point, though. I think he's meant to be directionless in this one.
Right.
Because in the first movie, he's like, my mission is to get the Black Pearl. He gets it. And then now he doesn't know what he wants.
No, but that's not the point, though. Maybe he's directionless, but at the same time, he's still supposed to have a brain behind that.
Let's let AJ have some input here.
Well,
go ahead.
I agree with Reese, and to back up kind of what he's saying is, it shows Gibbs, his first mate, kind of taken aback and uneasy about when he realizes that Jack Sparrow doesn't have a plan and he's his captain and his leader who's always been, 2 steps ahead and, really sure-footed is not that way anymore, and it's really throwing Gibbs off. So I think that it's a deliberate lost-mindedness for the captain.
Yeah, and also the other crew member, I forget his name, the shorter guy, is like, have you been noticing that Captain Jack Sparrow is behaving strange-er? I think it's set up.
I thought that was more to point out just his kind of fear, but
Well, yeah, because he's being odd and not actually fitting his normal role.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know. They didn't really set it up that way.
Well,
Maybe if
Let's find out. We'll move on.
Yeah, let's move on to the plot.
All right. An escaped Elizabeth attempts to coerce Beckett for a letter of marque to save Will from execution. In the process, she agrees to find the compass and learns that Beckett is after another special treasure. She stows away on a Scottish merchant ship disguised as a male sailor. Using the crew's superstition against them, she tricks them into making port into Tortuga.
Okay, so I will have different things to say about Elizabeth later, but up to this point, her negotiation or convincing to get papers actually falls in line with her character from the first.
Yeah.
And I think that didn't bother me upon watching this. I think that makes sense. I like that she is thinking about, okay, who do I go to? Where do I find what I need to find to
Right,
get
yeah.
Will out of this mess and to help him? So, but up to that point, I think her manner about going after Will doesn't, while it is, I guess, comically sort of humorous, it doesn't make sense to me from a person of her mental caliber, the way she goes about her business. And I know this is a children's film, so I try not to nitpick too much.
I would say it is a family film.
It's a family film.
PG-13.
Yeah. So it has a strange mix of family film and some more disturbing content. So I have trouble trying to align myself with one side or the other.
I'd say it's fair game to take this one more seriously than your average family film. I think it's on an Indiana Jones level.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a
it's-
fair number of double entendres in this one.
Yeah.
Are we to the native island yet?
No,
No, not
we're
yet.
just talking
We're
about
still
Elizabeth Swann. I think the ship scene, which I think the natives happens before this, but I'll talk about it anyway.
Yeah, so
I
just
think-
forewarning, I kind of reformatted some of this to make it more consolidated because the other article jumped back and forth quite a bit. and
No,
it
yeah.
Very confusing.
Okay.
That's totally fine. I think, not to show my hand completely, I'm pretty forgiving of this movie overall, but this scene is dumb. Like the whole scene on the ship
Gosh, it makes me cringe.
where it's like, yes, they tried to justify it by saying that the crew members are stupid or something, but the fact that they would believe that, for one, Keira Knightley is a dude with her voice and just the way she looks, I'm sorry,
What's that over there?
there's no way you can make her. She's a very pretty woman. There's
Yeah.
no way you can sell that illusion.
And
On
maybe
top
they
of
just
that-
thought they were gay for a little bit.
I will say she was in a way hiding the whole time. Like I don't think they were ever looking at her. I think
Yeah.
that the
Reese,
voice
it's like
maybe,
Joan of Arc.
Yeah, but
Except
also
on a
her
ship,
whole,
you never really have an idle person just kind of sitting in the background. It's like, oh, what are you supposed to be doing? What are you supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
Well, except for in that situation, no one was doing anything.
her whole plan though, I feel like could be you could write the scene so much better to get them to go to Tortuga. I think you could get them to Tortuga just by having her suggest like, hey, I heard something about Tortuga and such, and we should go there. We got to do this. But her plan is to buy into their superstition of ghosts
Yeah.
and then string her dress up at night
Yeah.
and have it waft around the windows, and then also paint Tortuga on the floor
With flammable
with
stuff.
flammable stuff and have the dress knock over the lantern into the flammable.
So much can go wrong
It
with
was a
that
lot.
situation.
yeah.
And this movie buys into slapstick quite a lot.
Yeah.
But I think most of the slapstick antics of this movie actually make practical sense, even though they're, exaggerated.
Mm-hmm.
This one does not. This one,
Yeah.
it
was too
stretches
much.
my.
It was too much.
Well, it's like they gave up on her intelligence and decided we'll just have an easy way to get them to Tortuga.
I will say that it's intelligence, but it's not believable.
No, it's not her kind of intelligence.
Yes,
though.
that's what I'm saying. It's
like
intelligence, not right.
Yeah.
And it's at the expense of the merchants. When
Yeah.
you literally
Also-
already had the first mate and the bosun saying, hey, we should go to Tortuga, it's kind of our last chance or last option, really. And then, no, just ignore them, but there's a spirit that she's magically
Wants us
bouncing
to
on the
go to
mainmast. And
Tortuga.
even though she probably has rarely set foot on a boat, despite the first movie and doing this puppet act. And yeah, like you said, it was a little bit too out there.
I'll debate that. I don't think it actually is intelligence. Just because a plan works in the movie does not make it a good plan.
It still was a lot involved.
There's a lot involved, but it's stupid.
Well, just because it worked, therefore it wasn't stupid.
but it's not a smart plan.
I would agree with Noah. Like, in any other movie, this would just be, like, the most idiotic idea. This is like Jack Black suggesting catapulting in to rescue
Yes, it is exactly
Robert
like
Downey
that.
Jr., or not Robert Downey Jr., but Ben Stiller in Tropic Thunder.
Okay, that would be silly if that was a world where that's not possible. But this was possible, and it was executed, and it worked.
But I said
it's not
it is.
stupid.
It's a heightened
Threshold.
reality in this movie.
Yeah, there's a higher threshold for the slapstick where I was fine with the balance it had with Pintel and Rigetti in the first one. This one's like, we'll just turn that up to 11.
Yes, and I thought just even with that considered, this moment pushed it too far.
Yeah.
Like that's all I was trying to say.
I will say, as a kid, I never cared. It did not bother me, nor did I notice. So I will say that is carried over.
For me, as a kid, this is the moment where I started kind of inching lower in my seat out of cringe.
You guys are so sensitive.
I
agree.
am sensitive to this.
So also, why isn't her first thought to try and make out with the captain and get him to go to Tortuga, like she has no problems doing later with other
has
Because
to
this
fit
guy
the
clearly has
scenario.
a higher moral standard because he's like, I don't want to dock in a pirate port.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, also,
Okay,
he
fair
doesn't
enough.
know her.
But
Yeah. All right, let's move on.
Yeah.
We all had
We
problems
need
with this
to-
except
we
for
need to
David.
move
Yeah, you guys are all
David is just attracted to Keira Knightley.
Will tracks Jack and the Black Pearl to an island and rescues them from cannibals. Avoiding the open sea, Jack leads them to the voodoo priestess, Tia Dalma. There she reveals Jones's weakness is his heart, which is locked within the dead man's chest. Jack must find both the chest and the key that opens it. Will makes a deal with Jack to find the key in return for Jack's compass. Jack tricks Will into confronting Jones alone by boarding a doomed shipwreck. Davy Jones and his crew board the Pearl, where Jack haggles for his own soul in exchange for 100 other souls. Jack's black spot disappears and Davy Jones keeps Will shanghaied into service aboard the Dutchman.
All right, so Cannibal Island. I want to get AJ's perspective on this first. What do you think about this whole sequence?
So it's just kind of, carrying on your comment on the slapstick nature of this. I think even as a kid, probably I thought that it was maybe a little too over the top coming from the first movie, or at least, setting that level of expectation. Because, there's goofy parts of it, but the whole running with the spit, strapped to his back and getting all the mangoes and papayas and whatever else on there.
Yeah.
It was probably to give more screen time to Jack Sparrow and kind of flesh out his quirkiness, in my opinion.
I like that quirkiness.
Shout out to Gore Verbinski, who I was watching the special features, and he really, they did so much scouting for this movie to find the most remote and just most beautiful, unconventional locations for this movie.
that would
Dominica.
be a great island to live on.
Yeah,
or
I think this
vacation.
island, they found, the perfect cannibal
Yeah.
island
It's
for this.
beautiful.
And this scene really kind of sets the visual tone apart. It's brighter, got that more azure blue of the Caribbean. When the first one was pretty dark, and so this one does feel like you're island hopping a little bit more.
Yeah.
With that crystal clear water and all that stuff. So it's got that more Caribbean feel.
And I do like that this one is a big shift from the mostly dark lit scenes from the first film. I mean, there's a good mix in both actually, but this one I have it's a more colorful
more sunny,
palette,
yeah.
I guess.
It's all that greenery.
We also Jack lucked his way into being a god on that island.
Yeah. So
I think that probably actually carries over from the first movie.
okay, so here, I don't mind him lucking into being the chieftain or whatever. That's kind of funny, and actually
And then
there
they
is a
made me
lot
their
of
chief.
Yep.
humor in this that I don't mind. But I think that it's just some of the slapstick situations are just a little more ridiculous than I'd like, because they're kind of leaning into it more than they did in the first one.
What's cool though is a lot of this was actually acted out. The little ball prisons that the crew is kept in, that was actually practically made. They weren't actually
Right.
hung above a
Oh,
huge ravine.
I believe that.
But that whole scene where they're rolling down, there was a lot of actual calculation that went into these sequences. Whereas, they're not actually rolling in that ball, but
if I'm talking about that scene in particular with the balls, I wouldn't mind that scene. But then they make it into even more of a joke and have that music playing, and then they're just like swinging back and forth as a joke, and
I was totally on board with it.
I was too.
But they have
it was
the crew
like-
guys for no reason. Like, they don't need to compete with each other. They just all escape together.
exactly.
No,
That's what I was
the
thinking after
funny
that.
thing though is I agree with you, but the guy mentions that the boat actually only requires around at least six people to run,
He's like,
and
oh no.
there's just this kind of stalemate there for a second, or this quick pause where it's like, should we do this together, or are we now competing? And they just decide that we're competing for this.
Okay, here's the thing. You can watch this movie and really enjoy it, but when you compare it to the first one, it's so hard to look at that and see like, oh, that's like such a ridiculous situation. And I know like the first one had its ridiculous situations, but it knew when to draw the line.
It furthers the line, but I don't think it crosses it completely.
Well,
I
to
don't
Noah's
think
point,
it does.
just take Cotton, for example. I'm pretty sure in the first one, he didn't have this ridiculous caricature squint, where in this one, he's just like closing his eye as hard as he can to make this contorted face, like, because he's missing an eye or something.
I've never even noticed that. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
I don't know. I just wish that they had kept kind of the same tone.
I think the
as
tone
first
is
one.
intact. It's just it's they're trying to change it to make it slightly different
they
because
upped
it's
the
a
ante a
sequel.
little bit.
It's like a sequel. They're trying to go a little bigger. That's all I feel like it is.
I don't know.
No, you want a movie that crosses the line? Watch Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Okay, but
That
that's
is
the most glaring example. That's an extreme example. Just because that
Now,
is really bad does not make others okay.
this just occurred to me, and do you think that they're trying to provide tonal balance to the later part of this movie where you have, obviously the more grotesque creatures and a little bit scarier side of things, darker
Yeah.
tones?
It's trying to add levity to darker subject matter.
Not
I would agree with
necessarily
that.
levity. It's more like transitionary.
Okay, I guess I'm forgetting that it's Disney, but I would have loved if they had went full swing with the scary Dutchman crew.
I thought they did.
No, well, they did for a bit, and
Well,
then they dropped the ball on it later.
It is
I
Disney, and I'm
disagree.
pretty sure they don't want to do Apocalypto with Cannibal Island here.
I'm not saying they have to go like full on.
It was more
But
like
I-
the disagreement with later when they go over the Dutchman, and then they
Yeah.
kind of take it back a little bit when they're fighting. And
Well,
I can understand
yeah.
that, which we'll get to, but like I think it's still fine.
if you mind me skipping ahead to one particular scene. Okay, so first they do the amazing setup of the Dutchman's crew. And I love that. I love their whole crew. It's creepy. It's similar to the Black Pearl in a way, but it's unique. And then later, they're on that island with the dead man's chest, and there's that whole army of them comes at Keira Knightley, and she's like fighting them off. And then that one dude loses his head and is like, "Oh, over here, buddy! Like, I'm right here. Pick up my head. Like, whatever." And it's just.
Antics like that are
Just
present
soils
in
it.
the first movie.
No, I know, but they dealt with it a lot
Yeah.
more naturally.
Anyway, how about you, Irina? How did you feel about all the Cannibal Island stuff?
So I think this highlights one of the positives about this film for me is that they tried to incorporate new locations, and whereas it could get a little tired out just everyone being at sea the entire time, a little too much like the first one. And so I like the incorporation of this cannibal island, trying to see a new people. And actually the design of all the cannibals is really fun too. The idea that they camouflage themselves into the scenery. Like I remember actually as a child being startled by that scene where Will is following the string, trying to figure out
Oh,
where
yeah.
the crew
That
is.
scared
And there
me.
was that guy hiding in the
Oh, so
background
good.
against the bark.
Yeah.
I actually I remember my heart jumping.
That is
like,
so well set up.
Yeah.
The color too, like great use of color
Oh,
as
yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Just and
really
set
don't-
design.
I really don't mind the native island. It's just the antics.
It
The
is
island
funny,
actually has a
like-
name, Pelagostos, or Isla de
Yeah,
Pelagostos.
Pelagostos. I actually wrote it down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The Pelagostos people. I was looking that up because I was like, oh, I wonder if that's a real place because they do a lot of stuff in the area when they're actually filming.
They do a lot of stuff in the area,
I'm just
for sure.
sometimes.
Where'd you learn that?
On Wikipedia. Anyway, it was
Sounds
filmed
about
in Dominica, but apparently there's a lot of people who had issue with the way they were showing the people that were the natives as cannibals, and how like, well, that wasn't in our history. Now you're making us look like we're super
Cannibals
bad
and
people.
super backwards and
Yeah,
everything.
but then the commerce and the tourism department of the country was like, no, stop that. Like, it's all good. It's all fake. We're getting a lot of tourism. Don't say anything more.
Yeah. So they get off the cannibal island and they go to meet Tia Dalma.
I like this lady, actually.
Yeah,
I think this
Naomi
is
Scott?
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
a cool inclusion to the cast of characters.
Do you think Jeffrey Rush is hiding upstairs in that scene?
No.
He's probably
I mean, we
he's
know he
probably
is,
still
but-
dead, but his
I think-
body's up there.
Jack the
He just
Capuchin
has
monkey
his
like
body.
literally runs to the back, so he's probably like, "Oh hey,
Yeah,
he's back there."
my old captain.
That's
I
true.
like him. I like
think
the
about
idea
that.
of him thinking, "Lol, that's totally Captain Jack Sparrow back there," and just sitting there eating
Yeah.
an apple or something.
Wait, you said Jack Sparrow.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, so you think that Barbossa's back there thinking that?
Yeah.
Just
Oh,
snickering.
God.
I like to. I
himself.
like to imagine like, huh.
He's like, I could come out now, but I'm just going to wait
I would totally surprise
for
them.
the opportune moment.
So I guess this is when Jack Sparrow formulates his plan to get Will Turner onto the Dutchman, I guess, to get what he needs.
Yeah.
I guess we can go into that scene unless anyone else has anything to say about this whole interaction.
I think we need to talk about Tia Dalma more, but...
I
Well,
don't know, I
what would
think
you want to
there's-
say about her?
I think she's cool.
Well, I think that she's the kind of character where it fits perfectly into this world that they've created, where you have this new person who has all this knowledge, and you're like, I don't know. I wanted to know more about her backstory because Jack obviously had run-ins with her before.
Yeah.
And I think that...
He's had
was it
run-ins with every
Naomi
woman.
Scott?
Yeah.
Naomi
pretty
Scott.
All
Yeah.
right. She's
No, Naomi Harris.
Dang
Sorry.
it. Naomi Harris.
Harris.
Naomi Scott is Jasmine in Aladdin.
yeah, sorry.
Yeah, Naomi Harris. She sells this with her eyes. Like, a lot of her acting and the way they did her makeup and everything. I really, really liked the movie up to this point. But then when they introduced her and how she developed the plot, I don't know. I was more excited about it.
Not to mention the theme that's incorporated here, that kind of eerie bayou sound, which I associate with her, I guess, is her theme. But I just calling out the film score here, I like that it kept to the feel of the first, but it deviated enough to match a second film, and I wasn't disappointed with it.
Yeah. This is also the first time it suggests that Davy Jones' literal heart might actually be in a
Oh,
chest.
Yeah.
Where it's like, is this movie like
Literal
the
or
whole,
figurative?
The whole time you're actually it's kind of an interesting question that it sets up. Is like, is that just like a metaphor and there's some representation of his heart
Yeah.
in there, or is it his literal beating heart? And that's
Yeah.
answered by the end of this movie.
In the heart.
But
I would say up till this point, I really loved the mystery of the story, and I liked the plot of just the dead man's chest and
Yes.
Davy Jones. I really appreciate what they're doing as far as that goes.
yeah, I also do kind of like the structure of this movie, even though the script is all over the place. They really were able to get that while Jack Sparrow's not the main character,
Yeah.
the world revolves around him, where everyone needs him for some reason.
Yeah, some
Like
weird
it's
reason.
and I kind of like that.
Yeah.
I like that balance where it's like everyone has a motivation to get towards Jack Sparrow because he has something that they need, and that's just I don't know. That's kind of
Yeah. And yet
like
he's still
that
his
structure.
own man with his own art.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think we also get our introduction to the Dutchman and its crew here. I think the Dutchman and its crew and Davy Jones are so awesome. They really managed to come up with something different that is equally, in my opinion, almost, well, not quite as good as the ghosts in the first movie, but just almost like right there. Like that's the next step you take.
Yeah.
They
It
made
is.
the right
It's really
choice.
good.
The design is perfect, and Davy Jones, his face, the way they've constructed that,
good.
yeah, the way they've constructed that character, it is some of the
2006,
2005,
2005.
no, you're right, 2006. It's some of the best CGI motion capture work I've ever seen, and it still holds up
It
today.
holds up so
Oh
good.
yeah,
I think the only problem I have with the crew, because I agree with everything there, and this is just it kind of falls into the same issue, not quite as bad, but the same issue with the Transformers films, where just there's so much detail on so many characters that you kind of lose them all in the mass. And I can pick out certain crew members on the Dutchman. So there's Sharkhead, and then there's
Quillface guy.
Quillface, the
Hermit crab
pufferfish
dude
face.
with the
Face,
head
that's how I
that
call him.
moves.
Yeah, the guy's head that falls off. But other than that, and I guess it just makes sense with the feel of the ship where everything's kind of morphing into sea creatures.
I like they're all slowly changing into, like, they're becoming part of the ship.
Yeah.
I like that they kind of, it's just this.
Yeah.
It's like they keep
do-
losing parts of their human selves and
Yeah.
starting to adapt into
I
the
have
ship.
one thing to say. I wish they were a little bit scarier.
How? How would you make them scarier?
here's
What are
the
you
thing.
talking about?
Okay, I'm not like a horror expert, obviously, but they have this amazing setup for them. Will Turner rose up on this boat, and this guy's praying and like
Dude,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
a
messing with
This
his
is a good
stuff,
setup.
and it is so creepy. Then they actually show up, and like they're still impressing me at this point, and all of them get killed immediately. But then after that, when Will joins their crew, it's like, oh, they're just like pirates.
Any scarier, and this movie's rated R.
Wait,
I know, but I would have loved that.
Hold on. I am so confused as to what they could possibly do. The CJ is amazing.
Okay.
They look scary.
So, here's
They're
the
not
thing.
skeletons,
There's,
obviously.
okay,
the first one.
they definitely could have made it scarier, but it is a Disney movie, so I can't
What,
fault
like
them.
headless people?
I can't
I
fault
honestly
I thought this
don't
movie
know.
was as dark as it needed to be.
No, okay. For a Disney movie, I'm just saying, I personally would have loved it if they were scarier.
What really emphasized and fleshed out his character was his supporting theme with the pipe organs. Like the whole, I mean, pipe organs are obviously have a sinister trope to them, like Toccata and Fugue and all that stuff. And it just him playing at the console, the pipe organ, that was like that's later on. But I just really love the
that.
pipe organ score that's his theme in this movie.
Yeah,
Yes.
his
organs
flair for
and
the dramatic is a very interesting character design there.
Yeah. Also, I would say the look of the ship is so cool. It just looks like it's been through hell. Like, and it's just got this jagged opening. The stern is at the front of the ship.
Yes.
Yeah. The stern just has this like jagged, gaping mouth almost.
Well, that'd be
And
the
it
bow,
just-
but
Yeah, it
They're
thrusts. Yeah, thrusts out of the water always in the coolest
Yeah.
way. Before we move on, let's get the
go
last
ahead.
plot point out of here. So Jack kind of not exactly tricks Turner into getting on the ship, but gets him
tricks
on
him.
there.
He
Yeah,
tells
kinda
him
tricks
that's the way you go, and tell Davy Jones you're here to settle my debt.
Well, no, he's like he tricks him into doing something that he wants, but he also doesn't want Will Turner to die because he
Yeah.
slightly cares about him.
Yeah.
So it's like it's mixed. But how do we feel about this whole sequence here of?
I will say that this whole sequence coming up to this point, even rewatching it and watching it now and reading about it, I always forget that they get the location for how to track the Dutchman from Tia Dalma. So she kind of tells him to go to this ship that is shipwrecked, which is where the Davy Jones ship meets to take the dead crew off, right?
Yeah.
And so when they get there, he tricks them onto the board, and that's where, we kind of get into it. But I always was a little confused at that part.
Yeah.
Was it anyone else? Like, is that just me?
Not really.
It's not. I didn't think it was that confusing, but I feel like the first time I watched this movie, I just I just experienced it. I didn't even really think about the plot.
The
but-
part that confused me was, so Jack Sparrow has spent all this time knowing that he has basically his soul on the line with Davy Jones, but he hasn't spent a moment trying to fully flesh out a plan on how to not.
He spent 13
be
years
stuck
trying to
there.
get the ship back.
Yeah, but within that time, you would think there would at least be some kind of idea. I don't know. I never understood why he was so surprised.
He's improvising
that,
all the
Davy
time.
Jones is coming to get your soul now.
He improvises.
The thing is, I don't think he's constantly drunk. He's constantly messed up. He's not
improvising everything.
He's by the seat of his pants always. Like that. Like there's never a moment where he's just like sitting around.
He's very intelligent, but it's always situational. I think he's really good
Well,
at
not in
coming up
this
with
one.
I think he's also
Like-
faithful in his ability to basically figure it out on the fly, weasel his way out of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, that's the
So
reason
take
it-
whatever
that is
happens in
prime.
stride.
Yeah.
It still just didn't feel right to me.
I'm just going to move on and say that there is one good thing. Oh, well, actually, there are a number of good things up until this point. But in particular, I actually really liked the fight choreography between Will Turner and the Dutchman's crew.
That was cool, actually.
The flaming sword.
With like the I mean
Azor Ahai.
a little before that I actually thought that seemed a lot more natural than the 3-man fight later on.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
man.
I think Will's character is the most constant of all these characters here. He doesn't really have much of a change in his perspective or the way he goes about things. He's always driven passionately by the heart and doing what's right and what's noble. And I have no problem with that. If one character is like that, that's fine. I don't mind if they don't really have a change.
I actually thought, and I agree with you. I actually thought Will was really cool in this movie. Because I was analyzing all of his decision making, and he doesn't make those same. Well, I mean, towards the end he has a couple of rash decisions, but
For the most part.
almost everything he does is kind of calculated, and he's kind of planning something out, like the
like the liar's dice scene.
exactly. And I actually really appreciated his character, and I was thinking like, oh man, he's pretty cool actually.
Well, this is a good transition into the next part because a lot of this is on the Dutchman. Did you have something,
Did you have
AJ?
something?
Yeah, really quickly, just an honorable mention because it doesn't expressly talk about him is Gibbs. His scene where they're floating down the river to see Tia Dalma and like doing that little bit of exposition, the backstory of the legend of Davy Jones and the Flying Dutchman. Like it's really magnetic. I just like his on-screen presence and his character a lot.
Gibbs
So good.
Gibbs is
Gibbs.
weirdly like the minor, like the heart to some of
Yeah,
these scenes. Does anyone have the actor's name like off the cuff right
No,
now?
I don't know it. It'd be worth
Let me look him
though.
out.
He deserves it.
I'm gonna look him up.
Kevin McNally.
Yeah, Kevin McNally.
Hey, there you go. He was quick on the up.
Yeah, I love how he's such a superstitious character. And at first it seems ridiculous how superstitious he is, but the more these films go, it's like, oh, Gibbs is totally right to be super...
Because
all
this
this
kraken just
everything.
came out of the sea and ate a couple of boats.
Yeah.
I would be a little
The
worried
superstition
too.
is real. That's why it's like this is all just kind of like unbelievable. Therefore, I'm okay with anything that's unbelievable in these movies.
Like him shooting a monkey in a cage.
You know that's not
Look,
going to do
an
any
undead
good.
monkey.
Does me.
What about the next portion?
Will meets Bootstrap Bill and learns that he is his father. Will boldly challenges Davy Jones' game of liar's dice for the key with his soul as collateral. Bootstrap throws the game to save Will's soul, who had only intended on confirming the location of the key. Now knowing Jones keeps it on his person, Will steals it and flees the Dutchman. As he is rescued by a passing merchant ship, Jones releases the Kraken and sicks it on the unwitting vessel. The ship and crew are destroyed, but Will alone manages to escape. In Tortuga, Jack looks for men to fill his new debt to Jones. Norrington looks for Jack and stirs up a brawl. The disguised Elizabeth intervenes and reveals her identity to Jack, subverting her desire for Will, and with her use of the compass, Jack is able to locate Davy Jones' chest on the Isla Cruces.
All right, let's start with Will meets Bootstrap Bill.
So I am actually very on board with this story arc. I think it's very cool to try and incorporate son reuniting with father, and the manner in which it is done is a unique and clever way to do it, where they share the same last name, so they both think they're being called to hoist the, what was it? Do you remember?
Hoist the
Colors.
The
I thought it was the
thing.
colors,
No,
right?
I don't know.
Hoist-
They were
hoist the
moving a
shaft.
cannon or something. But
That's not right.
just to have that that weird little meet cute there. And so I really like this part, and I like Will's story, and I think this is where I was more interested in the film.
This is one of my favorite parts of the movie for sure.
Stellan Skarsgård saving a movie again.
Oh yeah.
I love this
also,
guy.
That scene where he has to whip his own son, Stellan
that
Skarsgård,
was
like
good.
his expression and the fact that there's that tear streaming down his face, like while the water is hitting them, and
The starfish on his face was crying too.
Yeah,
No,
the
that's
starfish
excrement.
too. It was weeping.
Ew.
Yeah, I
woman
love
was
Stellan Skarsgård in this scene, and you get the sense that he really regrets the path that he chose, and he's so sad to see that Will Turner
Yeah.
has fallen into the same,
Yeah, he came
type of
out
life.
anyway to
But
a
he's-
pirate's life.
You really get the sense, you see it in his eyes and the way he's acting, that he truly...
Loves his son.
Yeah, he
He's
loves his son.
amazing.
He's willing to sacrifice an eternity on the Dutchman to just save him.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
And like after he like whips Will, he's like, so you call whipping me an act of compassion? And then he's like, yes. And it's like, you're darn right.
Also, you do learn that Bootstrap Bill, when he had been cast off, he was alive at the bottom of the ocean.
yeah.
Like, because of the curse.
Right.
Just
I had
under
to
the,
look that up, actually.
Yeah.
under the pressure of the water.
Yeah.
Like, that's so crazy.
He just says it kind of casually in
Yeah.
in his conversation to
Jack.
Jack,
Yeah.
and you barely notice it. Like I would not have noticed it if we did not have that knowledge
I never
from
noticed
the
it.
last movie.
And so I actually looked that up with Irina, like, when we were talking this
Yeah.
week, because I didn't realize they actually talked about it, but it kind of blows on by. You don't actually pay
Yeah.
attention to it all
Yeah.
that much. You're right.
All right, so Will gets the key in a pretty tense scene where he's just... I love how he just uses this tool to kind of like lift the
Yeah,
tentacles.
maneuver the
of,
tentacle out of the way.
Yeah.
It's such an effective kind of just
Yeah.
tense, like, oh, is he going to get it? You know he's going to get it, but it's
Yeah.
like...
Sorry, at this point, had they done the piano scene with?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
they had.
I love that.
Yeah,
You mean
it's
the
so
organ?
cool. The
Or
organ.
yeah, organ. My apologies.
Yeah, no, it's
the scene with
keys.
the organs. I just it adds this weird, huge amount of depth to Davy Jones as a
Yeah,
character.
he's a scorned lover.
Yeah.
is the thing, and because of his breakup with
Yeah.
whoever, or
sea.
loss of
Yeah.
It
whoever.
was the sea I heard he was in love with.
But they managed to put so much emotion into CG and just the playing of music, and I thought
Yeah.
that was a really effective scene.
To come back to Davy Jones' character, it is not a lot of villains who decide to kind of pitch their voice at a high range, and he has a very unusual cadence with the way he talks, and it's very distinctive.
That's called
so
very
usually,
Scottish.
It's a very Bill Nye.
Yeah,
Or
so-
Nighy? Is it
Nighy.
Nighy?
yeah.
Yeah.
So you usually expect from a pirate film to have that harsh pirate sound, you know?
I do love that his performance came completely through. Like, you know that it's
Yeah.
Bill Nighy
Yeah.
doing that character. There's a lot of like CGI performances where it's like, oh,
Yeah.
he is that. But
And it's in the eyes very
Yeah.
They
distinctly.
left his eyes
They-
for sure.
yeah.
yeah.
And I think he chose a Scottish accent, whereas Gore Verbinski originally wanted him to be Dutch. But he was
Yeah,
more
because
comfortable
it's the
performing
Dutchman.
with Scottish.
It was a
Yeah,
great
I have
accent.
no problem with that. I think he did a good
99
job.
souls.
3 days.
He was great.
His face almost reminded me a little bit of the Cowardly Lion. Like
Oh,
instead of
you're
a mane, you have
right.
tentacles,
Oh,
and then like
gosh.
just kind of his maw.
Much more
I would
menacing. though.
never have thought of that. Oh my god.
I guess this is also where the love triangle of sorts begins between Jack Sparrow, Elizabeth, and Will Turner.
What love triangle?
Wait,
This is a
Hang
square.
on. Noah wants, I think before we got to that point, Noah wanted to comment on Norrington.
this is the
Norrington?
moment.
Yeah, because we got to Norrington and
This
Oh,
is
yeah.
the moment for
Yeah.
me. They ruined him.
yeah.
They ruined him.
Disagree.
You're wrong. I don't care. People can have opinions, but that's just wrong. He is not who he was in the first one. He is a completely different character just because he's likable in a different way.
yeah.
He is not the stalwart, resolute character.
He has
that
changed.
He
Yeah,
broke.
but he shouldn't have.
Yeah, he broke. The
Because
thing
he
is,
put his all into chasing down Jack Sparrow. He made it the essence of his being. He was obsessed, which is, just kind of all backstory that you're supposed to infer. But he literally sailed his ship or navigated his ship through a hurricane to try to catch him, which is madness. And he failed,
Yeah.
and that broke him.
and he lost his whole
But
crew.
The point is, Norrington wouldn't have sailed through a hurricane. And actually, in the first one, I have to say, I don't think he was obsessed because he let Jack Sparrow go. If he wasn't obsessed,
I think
would've-
he became obsessed.
Yeah, this is in between the
like
movies.
that's the blanks you're
but-
supposed to
Supposed to read
fill in
between the
between the
lines.
movies.
that's such a crucial moment for you to have to fill in.
All right. I'm in the middle because when I first saw this, I was on board. I did think it was a little weird. That was one of the things that stood out to me, but especially after rewatching this multiple times,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel in his character's development and his personality because he's a resolute character. I don't think his honor, as they stated online, I don't think he would have thought he lost his honor or had to resign on his own.
And then become a
Not
drunkard
because of
and
this.
become a pretty much a slave to Jack.
Yeah, he fell off
Jack.
the wagon.
Like, that doesn't make sense.
Not
If
to
he's
get-
obsessed,
just
he
say-
would
not-
not become his crewman.
I think he would. And this is not to get ahead of myself, but Gore Verbinski and the writers, they gave this character an arc. Instead of making him the same thing movie to movie to movie, they had him. He hit a rough spot. This is his rough spot in this second movie.
It seems
in
too
the
rough.
third.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
Well,
agree.
you might agree. I don't think his character is perfect, but I think they're adding a dynamic to his character. This is Norrington at his lowest moment, and in the third movie, he has a redemption moment where it is. And I'm not trying to get ahead of myself. This is the second moment in his character arc. And he reaches the end game of his character arc in the third movie. And I think his end is very satisfying and very noble.
Okay, I will say though that because I do agree, I did enjoy his character. I think it was a little forced, but it seemed like they had a plan for him in the first movie. I feel like they didn't have a plan for him after that, in that they kind of shoehorned him in somehow into the plot, and it makes sense in a way. But I feel like they forced it. It didn't feel like they had a plan for him, but that people liked him. They responded well to him from the first, and so they tried to make a way for him to fit the second and third.
See, his inclusion in this movie confused me because in the beginning, when they're giving out search warrants, I thought that, oh, he's not here anymore. And when they gave the reason why he's not there to be arrested, I thought it was because, oh, they can't have the actor or the character in the second film, I guess. So that's an explanation why he's not here. And then he just kind of shows up later, a drunken buffoon, kind of belligerent, and just wanting to shoot Jack. It was so jarring to me. And I could get behind the storyline, I guess, but it would be nice to see some of the stepping stones there.
Yeah.
Because his character in the first never gave me the obsessive impression. And he's been, he's promoted to Commodore. Like
calm, cool,
he's
collected.
he's very honorable. He's very focused on doing the right thing, and even to the point where the right thing might be allowing piracy. So in some ways, he was a little lenient, judging by character.
Yeah. Mhm.
So he was very discerning in that way in the first one, but to reduce him to that low is
It's
an
terrible.
insult to what I liked about him.
I like
Exactly.
it. I like it though, because I think every character, no matter how good, there is a straw that breaks the camel's back, and you just completely collapse.
No, but the point was that his character wasn't supposed to be that kind of character.
No, the whole point of the first movie, and this is what the second movie wants you to think, is that this is just all these things that are completely just adding to the burden of Norrington. Literally, the whole movie is just like Norrington taking all this crap from every single direction. And he's like, oh, I guess this is happening at the end of the movie. He's like, I'll give him a head start.
Yeah,
Because he's
but-
still a good guy at that point.
Hang on. His honor was broken, but the way he handled it is not in character.
The thing,
So
though,
he
it-
decided to just resign.
Well, I think that's why Reese
and
was saying
leave.
it's like the straw that broke the camel's back.
I know,
He snapped.
but if you're so
point is-
honor bound,
Yeah.
you try to make up for that, not
thing-
just leave.
And on top of that, though, you can tell that his character in the first one has a really strong will. Like,
Yes.
he would not have broken so simply like, oh, I did a stupid thing. I went through a hurricane. Like, he wouldn't have done that. That's stupid.
Agreed, yeah.
He would not have done that.
So,
He's not stupid.
To quote the first one, I don't know the exact quote, but he basically says he saves his personal inklings or whatever and forsakes that for the sake of the majority. He pretty much states that in the first one.
ignores his own,
But
yeah.
going straight into a hurricane deviates from his basic principles. So that choice to make his direction go in that
How do you have to
direction
bring in logic like that?
No,
does not make
Okay.
sense.
Well-
in addition, I would
let AJ
venture.
say
I would
something.
venture real quick. I would venture to say that Norrington saying we could give him a day's
Days head start.
head start is pretty much him saying we'll let him off the hook, but he can't really say that because he's held to his station.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's pretty much him saying, we'll let him go. But then it makes no sense that he would be obsessively chasing Jack Sparrow after that. Unless he had the law on his shoulders telling him to, which they did not set up, so that you can't put that into the mix.
His decision to go through the hurricane obviously being against his, character and his, whatever word I'm looking for, that decision to go against your own gut feeling and what your core being is about, and then failing at that's what breaks people.
Yes.
When you're wrong and you can't take that moment back, you can't go back in time and fix that because it was something you wouldn't normally do. And now your character itself is tarnished, and that's what brings people rock bottom. But
So
I agree that
ahead.
this, it is very a stark contrast between movies, and that, the audience has to read between the lines if they're looking for that character development. But I don't know that this movie has room for his character development because it would outshine every other character that we see because, the character development is pretty thin as it is for the main characters.
Yeah. And I will say, y'all are going to rage. I think Norrington is more interesting in this movie than he is in the first.
Yeah.
I disagree.
I know. Wait, the thing is, I like this stark difference from the original character that really makes you think about the journey he went through between these films. Like, I want to know that story because I feel like a man who is of Norrington's stature in the first film could become the one in the second. Like, I want to know that story because in life, you just go through these changes. People can be at the height of heights in the beginning and be at the low of lows at the next moment. And the story, I think it makes him more interesting.
Yeah.
I am more interested in Norrington's story in the second film. I want to know how he got there.
I can be on board with that. I would just say that if you took him out of the plot, it wouldn't change all that much.
He's actually crucial in the third film.
The thing is, he's thrown into the second one just to bring a compass back. Or not the compass, the heart.
The heart.
But they could have done that. Up
Gosh,
Anyway,
but the thing is, they could have filled that role with Will. They could have had Will bring the heart to him.
No.
They could have.
No.
Why not?
I think it's fine as is.
Okay.
Well, I think you have, it's just the three-pointed approach of this. He's an agent for the government or the East India Company, whereas, you have Jack as a point for the pirates, and then you have the point of the supernatural, Davy Jones. So those points are in contention. Mm-hmm. And then Will and Elizabeth are kind of in the middle trying to find their allegiance.
Let's talk about the love triangle real quick and then move on to the next segment of the story.
This is Satan.
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
What do you think?
Go ahead.
We debated, David and
had a
I,
good debate.
for a while about... He
I don't believe in the
he
triangle.
refuses to believe that Elizabeth Swann is at all interested in Jack.
I'm middle of the road of it. I think she's like, she sees a bad boy, and it's she's still very young.
She's a pirate.
She's still very young, but she's also wise, considering her age.
Yeah.
I think she's kind of intrigued by him, but also like she knows it'll never work.
Yeah.
And she decides to use that to her advantage to get what she wants.
I think, and I held off on this opinion to save it for the podcast, but I think this is one of those things where I feel like this movie, while it does explain a lot of the plot, it leaves almost too much for the audience to infer. Mm-hmm. And this is one of them where she has this, it's obvious that there's a certain attraction, and you can understand that because she's always been sort of interested in pirates. But I think this whole looking at the compass and seeing it turn towards Jack, in my opinion, is less about her attraction to him and more about the attraction to the life that he leads. And that's kind of what she wants. She wants that to be a little more on the pirate side.
And I think that tracks with her character from the very beginning of in the first movie. Mm-hmm. She saved Will Turner. She was intrigued by his medallion.
Yeah.
She kept it on her person.
Yeah.
I think that tracks.
I think it's less about the romantic side and more about her yearning for a different kind of life.
Yes. Noah, you have a smug look on your face. But
it's not a smug look.
Uncomfortable look.
I just No, I just...
The thing is, I don't think she ever thought that anything would happen between her and Jack.
Okay, so I'm actually with you. I don't think that she saw anything working, but I could definitely see that she was attracted to him.
I think the way that this movie is filmed, this is one of the flaws I find in it, is it feels like it's trying to lead the viewer, but you're not really sure what message it's trying to lead you towards. And not in a clever way. It's more like they kind of threw a bunch of balls in the air and they're trying to catch as many as they can. So I can still follow the story, but there are so many things going on that I'm not quite sure I'm reading the right message that they're trying to convey, you know?
Yeah, they had so many subplots going on.
And a lot of subplots.
This is why I wish they'd either just stuck to the Flying Dutchman or
It's a lot. This movie's not perfect. I agree.
Yeah.
the other, almost said Admiral. I mean Lord Beckett.
Yeah,
You always love to say Admiral.
Admiral Lord
No, dude,
Beckett.
okay, you know why? It's because Admiral Beckett is a Magic the Gathering card.
I knew there was something. I knew it.
He's also a pirate.
Before we move on, I just want to do a quick call out to the first scene where we get the Kraken taking down a ship. I think it's
Ooh, that was cool.
I think it's
That was
awesome.
awesome.
Like,
Yeah, I love the Kraken.
I love the little Kraken moments here.
I love the loud snapping of the ship sound.
Yeah, and I also love how the music just goes classical at times, where it's
yeah.
just like, I love the
I
Kraken.
love how they
moments.
summon it too.
Yeah.
They like walk around that.
Well, they're pushing.
They're
kind
pushing
of
the
cranking
Yes,
it.
the
thing.
cranking this thing that unleashes a pulse
Yeah.
into the
Yeah.
water. Yeah.
It like raises up and then it like.
There's a lot of
falls.
really, really good moments
Yeah.
in this
Yeah.
that fit perfectly with the franchise.
And quickly before we move on, I know we're like running long on this, but this is also the recruiting of the 99 Souls. And I do like this kind of raucous saloon scene.
Yes, I love
Yeah.
it.
It's kind of a callback to the Pirates of the Caribbean ride.
It's like, here's Tortuga again.
I love the first few people that come up to their table. It's
Yeah.
just this guy who's like, I don't give an ass rat if I live or die. It's just like, you're hired. You're in.
I have
I
a
love
gimp
that
leg and
brawl.
no arm. It's the crow's nest for you.
Yeah.
Also, no, the word you're looking for is capstan.
Capstan.
Yeah, where they're turning the
Oh, the crank.
Oh,
cranking. Yeah.
okay. Good to know. Good to know.
Mr. Nautical over
All
here.
right, continue our
it's like a windlass but horizontal.
The Dutchman, the Pearl, and Will all arrive on the island to seize the chest. A three-way sword fight breaks out between Jack, Will, and Norrington, who all want the heart for their own goals. Jack wants to call off the Kraken and save himself. Will wants to free his father from the Dutchman, and Norrington wants to regain his life as a Navy officer. In the chaos, Norrington secretly steals the heart and runs off, pretending to lure away the Dutchman's crew while the others escape the island. Jones again summons the Kraken, which kills most of the Pearl's crew and destroys all but one of the lifeboats. Jack initially flees the battle, but returns and wounds the Kraken with an explosion of gunpowder and rum. Jack orders the survivors to abandon the ship, but Elizabeth, realizing the Kraken only wants Jack, tricks him and chains him to the mast so that the crew can escape. The Kraken reemerges and drags Jack and the Pearl to Davy Jones' locker.
So this island scene where they have the whole swashbuckling between the three suitors or whatever is actually where this movie lost me. And I think everything up until this point, I was like, okay, this is a mood they have. It's fine. I'm cool with this. It's fun. And I might not like these characters as much as I did before, but I'm still enjoying it. This part, I feel like they used a lot of plot points just to get a fun sword fight out of, which is fine, but their motivation is very lackluster. I don't really understand why they are so vicious at this point. And there's a lot of confusion that happens just for the sake of running around an island and whacking each other with swords.
Yeah. Well, I think it's mostly some of them actually hate each other, but others are just trying to get to this item
Yeah.
or the MacGuffin, the chest.
Yeah.
I don't think they all have murderous intent on
Yeah.
each other, but it is. For me, it is another fun sequence where I'm like, how many movies do you see a three-way sword fight like this?
All right.
That's just like
Yeah.
ridiculous.
So I disagree.
Yeah.
Oh, what a surprise.
Yet again.
Hater of joy.
Okay, here's the thing. They have plenty of good moments where they have good choreography, but you watch that fight, none of them are going for any actual, like, spots to
They're
hurt
evenly
each other
matched,
or
Noah.
subdue each
They're
other.
evenly matched.
hits.
They're just hitting each other's swords the whole time, and there are 3 of them fighting at once. Like,
It's Disney.
yeah, I know it's Disney. I know, but it's just like it's just too.
How can
it's
you be
too
so
much.
mad at this movie? They're on this beautiful island. There's amazing fight choreography. There's just hilarious dialogue between all of them. It's just a swashbuckling, fun adventure. You're not supposed to take it so insanely seriously.
No, but you compare it to the first one, which is a masterpiece.
They
Yes.
also had that same thing happening.
No,
I
not
gotta
like
agree
that.
with
Not
Reese
like
on
that
this.
though. Not like
this
that.
whole thing is you can't overanalyze one thing but underanalyze another.
Okay,
they
name
actually-
a moment that's as ridiculous in the first one.
Any of the swashbuckling fighting scenes
Where?
with dead pirates, where people
That's no.
okay,
That
wait,
sticks with the mysticism of the show of the movie.
The moment where Elizabeth realizes that Barbossa is a skeleton and she gets pushed out into the crew, which are all skeletons, and she is bounced on that huge thing up high, and then a skeleton who is swinging on a rope grabs her and swings her around like that. That's like the same
that's
thing.
that's
Got
a
him.
diff. That no, that's a
Got
okay.
him.
Okay, so seriously, that sticks with that kind of ride mentality. But the it's different. I don't know how to explain that it's different, but it is different.
It's the same. It's just upped slightly.
I think I agree completely. It's up slightly and it's slightly ridiculous, but this whole thing is ridiculous, and you have to kind of let go a little bit.
No, I
It's-
know.
you- it's fun.
Okay, I know it's fun. If I didn't have the first one, I would be able to see it differently. But I have the first one.
Oh, and
the
do you know
first
how
one
much
is
work
a
went
masterpiece.
into this, like the well scene where they're all spinning on that wheel trying to get the
Yeah.
key?
So
Like,
here's
it's
the
just-
thing. I do in a weird way enjoy the wheel, but more what I
really?
don't like is just the fact that it's a 3-person fight.
I'm somewhere in between. So the beginning of the 3-person fight, and I totally get where Noah's coming from, is just too. So this whole movie, they dance the line between slapstick and just kind of entertainment.
Yeah.
And some parts they go over, some parts they stay within a good boundary, in my opinion. And this whole fight is kind of the case where there are parts like the water wheel, in my opinion, was a little bit too over the top. For it went on for too long, and especially the whole camera spinning. And then some parts of the early fight 3-way were not as engrossing as when it was a dual one-on-one within the broken down chapel where he rides up the belfry, and the one-on-one fights were a little bit more engrossing than the 3-way fight, which
Yeah.
I agree with Noah on. I understand it's a Disney movie, and like some of it just felt too cheesy. Some parts were good. And I just feel like the balance, they were kind of dancing around that line. And
so
some parts,
mixed bag.
it's just not to be like a political on it, but take the politician stance of it's good and bad. But they went over the top on some parts. They did it balanced in other parts. So
Yeah.
I'd agree. There are a couple of parts that like kind of stretch the ridiculousness of it a bit. My only complaint is that I think it went on a little bit too long.
yeah.
That's a problem with these 2 sequels to the first film. It's just a bit bloated. But we do eventually, they open the chest and there is a beating heart in it. What y'all think of that reveal?
I did like that.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool.
I think I never actually questioned that it wasn't real.
No styrofoam or
I
bubble
just
wrap or
kind of
anything, just
assumed,
rocking
like-
around in there.
Yeah.
Yep.
I figured it would be
The thing-
an actual heart, but I still thought it was cool to see it.
The thing that confused me is I always thought, wouldn't he want to keep the heart with him, not the key? I don't know.
he's like-
It just
he
seemed
is the
very.
sea,
It
so-
seemed very strange to have a big chest right in the middle of an open island in the sand.
Well-
I would be concerned.
If he's going to keep
as
it with him,
the
he might as well
Deadman.
keep it within his, natural chest, not a wooden chest.
Yeah. Just keep it there.
Yeah, at that point,
It's
I do
safe.
think it was safer where he had it because who else is really going to know? Like,
Well,
it's
apparently Jack Sparrow knew, which is
Yeah.
like, if Jack
Well,
Sparrow knows, wouldn't you like
he
be more
didn't
careful
know.
about that?
Actually, he
So
had
also-
the compass,
Yeah,
which
the compass was
Elizabeth
the important
had, and
part.
that led to the part in the
I just feel like Davy Jones in general is a little clumsy about his personal effects because he first of all willingly shows Will where his key is.
He loses
and
his
when,
lady.
When Will is off with the key, he decides, you know what, I'm going to send the Kraken after that ship, and I don't care if that key falls to the bottom of the ocean, that it'll just be somewhere, it'll be lost, and nobody can find it.
That is
And
a
I'm
good
just
point.
gonna,
I never
I'm
thought
just gonna
about
bury
that.
this chest in the middle of
he
the
can
sand.
find anything in the ocean.
Yeah, because
I
Davy
think.
Jones Walker is literally the bottom of the ocean. That's his
but
realm.
it's just like what I don't know. There's this kind of I everything I have
He's
to
cavalier, yeah.
explain for all of these situations, and it doesn't. It just there are a lot of things that happen in this movie for the sake of having a big cool scene, which there's no problem with that. But I feel like I'm let down because the first one felt so much more constructed than this one in a
It was more contained.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I think for the sake of having just a bigger picture here, it kind of lacks some of that continuity that I expected from it.
But even still, you have to forgive it a little because this is the middle chapter. It's like it is setting things up or establishing things to be completed by a third film.
I would disagree that
let's see how
earns it forgiveness because, you can have a
Yeah.
standalone movie, not just have a movie that doesn't really, I don't know.
Yeah,
What I don't think there's certain middle chapters that I don't think would work on their own, like Two Towers, Lord of the Rings.
Well,
I don't think.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk about that more in the
I-
review, but I think that to an extent that theory is okay when it starts out intending to be a trilogy and you know from the get-go that this is a multi-part act or multiple acts in this overarching story, whereas this, we're coming off the first one that was a standalone, and then it's like
Yeah.
expecting the same thing here, and it's like, oh, wait, okay, I
This
guess I
is-
need to see
this
the
is
next
not-
one.
Also,
the same trajectory. Yeah,
and in addition to that, you have the first movie was a full-on kind of adventure story, and it does have adventure to it, but it's almost more of a chase than a actual kind of, like, oh, you're a pirate along with them. You're just going on this trip to find treasure and deal with some cursed pirates.
and maybe
you know?
that's because they just have to jump between a bunch of different characters within this film to follow their stories. But
Yeah. How do we feel about the final Kraken confrontation and all that? The final action sequence in this movie.
Okay, ignore Elizabeth Swann here, and I love this.
I thought that was perfect. I will fight you.
I don't like Elizabeth Swann making out with another dude.
I think it puts a period at the end of whatever you thought about this love triangle.
Yes.
It's like, no, she might have been slightly intrigued by Jack Sparrow's lifestyle, but she does not love him in any way. She
She made a choice.
What
she
if-
made a choice.
So hang on for a second. What if she hated the concept that she might be attracted to him?
That's what I
and
was
didn't
thinking.
want to
Yeah.
be, and so she shackles him so that she doesn't have to deal with
that
it.
is
I think
exactly what
she
I was thinking.
she overbalanced herself. She was overconfident in her ability to manipulate him, and then
Yeah.
those feelings of vulnerability and questioning herself arose, and she was scared. And especially with the scenes with her looking at the compass, she immediately snaps it closed because she's uncomfortable at the implications.
Yeah,
because she's
yeah.
afraid. She goes into it headstrong and saying, I'm going to manipulate him the same way, with the island scene in the first with the rum
Right.
and just mold them like clay. But then Jack fires back is like, well, this applies to you too. You want the curiosity of, being on the dark side, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay.
The street goes both ways, and then she
It's
just got
exactly-
scared.
And
I
if that's
completely agree
true,
with that.
I actually think that makes her character more interesting.
Yeah, but
I'm not saying it
I still
doesn't.
hate it.
Yeah.
I think it does. I like that she has this kind of
Complication.
two sides to her where it's like
Yeah.
she could go dark and she could go light.
Yeah.
Like it's like her attraction to Jack Sparrow and that lifestyle is kind of like the dark side of
Forget about
her.
Will.
Yeah.
Let's leave him out to dry.
I'm just
What are you
saying,
talking
some
about?
people
She
say that
chose
she's not
Will.
attracted to
No,
Jack at
in
all,
that
and I'm saying that's not the
circumstance-
case.
Yeah.
in that
yeah.
circumstance,
I think that's okay in that circumstance.
Why?
Because she used it to trick him. It wasn't because of love.
But she
No,
doesn't
no, that
let
was the
Will
point
on
he
the
was just
secret,
making. Were
and
you
Will
listening?
just,
Yes.
kind of silently festers over it.
Yeah, and the thing was, I don't think that it matters because it's all about getting Jack to stay there. It's about saving them so she can stay with Will.
No,
So the ends
point,
justify
the point,
the means justify the ends? Or the
In
ends
this
justify the means?
situation, yes,
Yeah,
yes, it
that's
does.
right.
The point
think
is
that-
that she did it out of spite because she was defying her feelings for
I don't
Jack,
think
so she
so.
wanted to
What?
pin them away and drop them.
No, that is not
Okay,
why
so-
she did that.
I think no matter what the reason, I have pinpointed what it is about her character that I don't like, and it's the way they pit her in this situation. And I think the issue this movie runs into is the fact that she's more used as emotional relationship drama, whereas I would have been more interested if they pushed a little more on that I'm not sure where I want to be. But instead, she's thrown into the situation of several men being attracted to her or her being attracted to them to the point where you just kind of see it superficially as she just doesn't know who she cares about.
The thing though is, I agree with you, but I also think these men. I get the sense that she's not actually attracted to men; she's attracted to lifestyles.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
And
the
like you
way
were
that
saying-
it's filmed makes it seem more about the relationship part. And in a way, it's this movie comes across to me as kind of sexist, playing her around as the sex appeal. And that's the way I viewed it when I first saw this movie, where instead of focusing on her wits and her intelligence, they started focusing more on her attractive appeal to the opposite sex.
But she's also playing mind games too. I don't feel like it's
She's
just
not.
attraction.
No, she's not playing mind
Wait,
games.
you don't think she's playing mind
No,
games?
she's not. The only thing she's using,
playing a mind game on
she's using
herself.
persuasion, and she's confused about her own identity. That's all. And she doesn't actually play many mind games in this.
Oh, well,
I think she does with Jack
I
Sparrow.
guess I disagree.
Yeah, she knows how to handle a sword. I think she is playing mind games because that was the line she used against Jack Sparrow to, she's putting
See?
the power behind the sex appeal to manipulate him. Did on the island with the rum. She got him drunk and then kind of like flirted with him and then knocked him out.
See, mind
But
games.
so the thing is, while that may have been their intent, the way this film is framed and put together does not
Oh,
make that appear.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think all of us
Yeah.
are bringing, cards to the table that we're pulling from our own decks, from experience,
Right,
from other
right.
things and what should be versus what was on
Yeah.
the screen. I agree with that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, like maybe I'm not as good at saying this, but that you remember that scene where she's looking at the compass. We discussed this before, and it points to Jack. That scene was specifically set up to make it look like she was interested in Jack, whether she is or not. The point of them putting that scene there was to allude to that fact. Otherwise, why would they put that there? It would make no sense for
No,
them to add that.
because Jack is the means to an end for her.
Yes.
The compass points to him because he holds the answers to her
That's the
destiny.
thing.
No,
And
no,
why is she
because
scared at
he
seeing
had
it?
already told her.
Yeah, yeah.
He had already told her at that point that she needs to find the chest. The answer is not in him; it's in her at this point. This is
I will
past that.
say that it's obvious to the viewer that is what she is feeling, but we can, at least for me, I can see above that. I think that other people should be able to read above that. It's that we can see what's happening, but she can't.
She's scared because I don't think she actually does feel much of an attraction towards Jack. And she's like,
Agreed.
what? The compass is telling me that I want him? What? Like, I
I'm so
don't
happy
know.
I'm not the only one who feels this way.
Like, I think that's why she's feeling trepidation. Anyway,
Whatever. I don't. It's not worth it.
I think it's worth watching the scenes where they're in tight close to each other and having the interaction. Even when she first reveals that she's Elizabeth, not some cabin boy or
Right.
whatever. She's just got this endearing attitude. Oh, Jack! Even though in the first movie he literally was back and forth on looking out for himself, throwing them under the
Yeah.
bus, and they knew that he
Yeah.
wasn't to be trusted, in the long term. And now it's suddenly, he's just kind of a cute they respect him almost more than they should, in my opinion, based on their
Yeah,
experience with him.
exactly.
And so I think
he has
she's
charisma.
romanticizing him, and I think she is attracted to him because of
Yeah.
what he represents in the adventure And
Right.
not necessarily that she even needs Will or Jack, but, there's certain
Yeah.
aspects of like reset the lifestyle.
Yeah.
But I do think that, her finding that independence does carry with it, physical attraction aspects that, she is scared to admit, which is why
Yeah.
she snaps the compass closed when it points at him.
Yeah. So it's unless there was some kind of underlying emotion there. Yeah.
Okay, so the Kraken eats Jack Sparrow. I do think it's a bold choice to have Jack Sparrow literally die at the end of this movie. Like
Dude,
Yeah.
it's
We don't
revealed.
know.
It's revealed in the next movie that he
those-
died.
Yeah.
Like he is in Davy Jones' locker.
Yeah.
I thought that was awesome.
Yeah,
That,
it's a-
it had some beautiful shots there.
Yeah, I just love the Kraken slowly consuming this boat, and then he's
Yeah.
like
He raises his
Yeah,
sword and
slow-mo.
faces it head on after kind of being
It
cowardly
shows what kind of
throughout.
character he is.
The captain
Yeah.
goes down with his ship.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like he's a hero when he finally needs to be in a sense, I guess.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he's not until the last minute where he's forced to be, and he's like, okay, I guess I'll do this.
Which I think fits his character in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. He does show some slight empathy too when he sees the Kraken consuming the ship, and he turns back on his boat to go back.
Yeah.
He was going to
Leave.
make
He's
his
gonna
way
flee
out of there. But yeah, so we get a little character growth. I feel like from his character, it wasn't there
yeah.
in the first film. I don't feel like you get as much empathy towards other characters from him in the first movie. So
It's like during the first one, you're thinking, okay, he is just doing this for himself, right?
yeah,
And then in this one, you're like, whoa, that was some acceptance of his death, and he's going in head first.
He's taking
Yeah.
it.
Well, he did
I
literally
like-
run away and then come back.
yeah,
Yeah. He did run away at first.
Well,
but
it fits
yeah.
his character, I think.
He came back and was like, all
Think of
right,
self
I want to
and
be
then
a captain.
And
Yeah,
I think
some of
that's
them-
because of what Elizabeth told him is you actually have this curiosity about what it means to be a good person. And so that comes back in the end where he does have that development.
Continuity.
All right, let's finish this story.
Yeah.
Jones opens
Yeah.
the chest to discover his heart is gone. In Port Royal, Norrington gives Beckett the heart and the letters of marque meant for Jack, allowing him back into the Navy as well as allowing Beckett to gain control of Davy Jones in the seas. The Pearl's crew take shelter with Teodalma, where they mourn Jack. Teodalma intervenes and suggests the possibility of rescuing him. She brings out a captain who can guide them. The resurrected Hector Barbosa?
And I loved, I got chills of awesomeness watching this again, even though it's like, I don't know, crazy that he's been hanging out up there.
Just
but
chilling
like
upstairs.
just seeing him back in this movie after being gone for the whole film, basically, and just coming back down there and eating the green apple, even though it's just giving the audience what they want to see. Like I was eating it up. I loved seeing Barbosa come down those stairs and just like I was like, oh yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Teodalma got that jar of dirt from the back, and guess that's not dirt.
Yeah, I guess not. How'd y'all feel about the ending of the movie?
I enjoyed it. It made me excited for the next one. I liked Barbosa in the first, and I enjoyed seeing him. I think looking back, I kind of wish they had left him dead because I didn't
Agreed.
want he had such a perfect end that it almost ruins that ending by bringing him back.
I agree.
But at the time, when I first saw this as a kid, I was really excited. I was
Yeah,
I
happy.
loved seeing a rejuvenated Barbosa who could fulfill like a better life of sorts. Like
Yeah.
he's still a pirate,
Yeah.
but I like him getting a second lease on
Yeah.
a different life, and that I think that's what that character deserved.
I think the idea of him possibly being on their side now was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to see what that's like.
And
Yeah.
and it's a character that, like, unlike Davy Jones, you could believe Barbosa being kind of swayed to a different cause.
He's a little more neutral.
Yeah, Davy Jones is just straight up bad.
Yeah.
Even though he still kind of has a heart in a weird way.
Well, he's
Literally.
he's he's a sympathetic character, but he doesn't really have any human connection anymore.
Yeah.
You know, whereas Barbosa still does.
I was all for it. It was the perfect like end to this
Yeah.
movie for me, where I was like, it just stoked my excitement for what was going to happen in the third.
Well, that's the thing, though. That to me, that's all. The only reason they did it was because, oh, hype. Let's do that. I think that it just kind of soils the open and then perfect close of Barbosa's
Barbosa.
Barbosa's character.
I don't
No,
think
Barbosa's
his
character.
his close was perfect in the first movie.
I
think it left. It
He's
was open-ended.
He's a villain. No, he was a villain, and he was, I think, supposed to die there.
Even the ending of the first movie showed uncertainty in that when the monkey steals the coin back and it shows that Barbossa is still alive. That was in the first movie.
Yeah, but the point is he should have been
Then
like
they ended the first
that
one wrong.
that finished his character. Like for the sake of his character, that should have been it.
It finished that version of his character.
No, but that's not no, it's still his character. There aren't multiple versions of the same character.
There
Right.
are when you
Except
have arcs.
in Marvel.
The thing is, I completely welcome a different side of Barbossa where he is on the good side, or at least quote unquote good side. I totally embrace this decision, and they do not waste it in the third one.
I think depending on your perspective, this could be a good thing, but my impression of the direction that the story took is that of someone who saw the first film and then kind of wrote a fanfic. That's how I feel about the progression of these characters, is almost someone admired the characters, decided to write them in a fashion that they would like to see, but it's not necessarily consistent, but it's what they feel that people want, you know?
I think this is it's a Star Wars moment. It's just like, oh, that guy's alive. Oh, he's my father. Oh, like it's a reveal that's just like supposed to. It's a popcorn reveal where it's like, oh, awesome! Like this is the thing you talk about as you're leaving the theater.
Yeah.
And I think
Barbossa was alive.
there's certain movies that fumble that ball, and it's like, no, that wasn't plausible at all.
I didn't realize Jack Sparrow actually wasn't smart.
But there is total plausibility to this happening. It is set up at the end of the first film. Like, what is not plausible about that? I just don't.
Thought he was dead and came back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except for they could dance around those kind of things all the time. I can't talk.
It's fine.
Okay, actually though, the thing is, the monkey picking up the stone is just so he can stay in the story. That does
coin?
not mean Barbossa's still alive. In fact, in the next one, Barbossa is not a skeleton. Therefore, that does not allude to him being alive.
You never see him under moonlight.
Huh?
You never see him
In
under
the future
moonlight.
movies, I believe you do.
Do you?
I'm pretty sure.
Can you prove that?
I think in the fifth one, he for sure is under the moonlight.
Well, we'll see.
Anyway,
I guess.
Regardless,
we're
he-
gonna see.
He's not a skeleton anymore.
Either way, we should probably close
Wrap
out
this
this
up,
story
yeah.
here because we've gone long, as usual.
Yeah.
You disagree, Noah, because you're a curmudgeon, and I enjoyed it.
No, okay.
That's where we're gonna leave it. No one can't even talk about
When
that.
you say that, you completely dismiss any opinion I have.
No, I'm
Don't,
just
because
joking.
people are hearing this and
I'm
they
just-
can decide for themselves.
Yeah. and
But he
I'm-
calls me a curmudgeon, and
Noah,
that puts a
Noah,
negative
I'm joking.
influence.
No, I'm joking.
No, you're not.
They can decide for themselves. No,
Yeah, you're right. I'm not. I'm just kidding. All right.
People will know.
Let's take a quick break and then we'll talk about this franchise
All right.
on the other side.
I think
Goodbye,
Reese
guys.
is a commission.
Welcome back. Pirates of the Caribbean: The Dead Man's Chest. Are y'all ready to review this film and then talk about this franchise as a whole and how this film affected its franchise?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yay.
Okay. David, I believe you have all of our scores in a little bowl. We will select them at random and we will give our brief reviews.
All right. Let's see who the first one up is. Noah. I don't know which one you're going with. You gotta stop giving me.
No,
two
I told
scores.
you for the books 3.
Oh my
And
god.
because of
Wow.
or sorry, for the books 5. My apologies.
for the
and then for the
betrayal,
betrayal 3.
3.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Wow. I was
So,
gonna
for the
say you're
books,
gonna
5.
go with 3.
What books?
The books that we're using.
Our logging.
Our logging.
Basically.
5?
Yeah.
Noah?
Okay, yeah, I wanted to clarify because when you say for the books, people are gonna go, there are books that these are based off of?
No.
Well, there's actually
For the
graphic
books is a
novels based
phrase.
on the movies, but
Yeah.
Yes, but the thing is there are books, so
Okay,
you might
so
confuse people
just
with that.
no double scores. You're going with 5, right?
Yeah.
You're nitpicking.
No, I think it might be confusing for the listener, so I'm
It's
just
not-
clarifying.
no, I agree. You need to clarify.
All right. I will say This movie, what gets it the 5 points is all the really cool scenes, such as the Kraken, as well as the Flying Dutchman, who is awesome, by the way.
Which is awesome.
I meant to say Davy Jones, who is awesome, by the way.
And the ship's pretty cool too.
The ship is cool. Yeah, ship is cool too. They have a lot of really cool CG. And I really like the elements that they had set up at the beginning of the story. But that's where it kind of ends, because they ease too much into the kind of ridiculousness of the story and less into the actual story. There's too many plots and subplots going on. I don't really like Elizabeth Swann's character development. I really don't like Norrington's character development. Will, I do like, and Jack Sparrow, I still like. However, he is diminished from his former self. And that about ends it. That's my summation of this movie. I think it's an okay movie, but I don't think it really deserves high praise.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's something.
Yeah. I know y'all disagree, but
Well, let's move on to the next score,
You're
which
entitled.
is Reese.
I'll take sorry, I will rescind my 3 though. That was harsh.
That was a bit harsh.
That was
was
an
harsh.
emotional scoring.
Yeah, that's under.
It was very in the moment. I was thinking, I'm mad at this scene.
Go with your heart, man.
So I will rescind my 3. I don't think it deserves that.
That's
I think 5 is fair.
All right. Reese with a 7.5.
Yes, I think this movie, it had a Herculean task ahead of it to try and follow up the legendary Curse of the Black Pearl. The writers had to try and connect plot strands from that movie to a middle chapter, which is this movie, and ultimately lead to a trilogy closer. That is such a hard job, and the work that went into this movie, it's huge. I was watching the special features to this. It is insane how much they did to bring this movie to life, and there is so much passion that I think is on screen, and you can see it just in the sets, in the characters, in just bringing this whole pirate world to life. I think it's all there. I'll agree that it is lesser than the first movie. It definitely is. It tries to be bigger and is ultimately not quite as successful as the first film. It has a less clear plot, and there's a lot going on at all times that it doesn't come to a firm conclusion either. But I think the movie is relentlessly entertaining. Like, there's never a moment I was bored by it. I was confused a few times, but I think all the characters are intact, except for Elizabeth, who is kind of more on shaky ground than some of the other characters. I like the choices. I like the progression of most of the characters here. And I don't even think Elizabeth is a disaster. I think she does certain things that are, in keeping with the character that they set up. Love all the action sequences. I think the introduction of the Dutchman and all of its crew is the best possible thing you could follow up or up the ante from the ghosts in the first film. Just the bringing to life of Davy Jones is a CGI miracle, in my opinion. It's hard to find anything as good as it. It stands toe to toe with something like Gollum or King Kong or Caesar from Planet of the Apes. I don't know. It just looks stunning, and it's an adventure. It's a ship adventure. You don't get pirate movies that often like this. And that's why I kind of treasure this movie for just bringing some of that adventurous thrill back into the world, which it has. And yeah, it's bloated. It has its problems, as I've stated before, but I think it's just a riotous good time. And while it's not nearly as good as the first film, it still earns its marks. So yeah, I'm going to stay with my 7.5.
All right. Moving on, we have AJ with a 6.5.
Wow.
All right.
So I pushed it a little higher than my gut said. I was probably feeling around a 6, but I think coming off of what Reese said about the entertainment aspect of it and also what went on behind the scenes to make it happen kind of gave it a little bit of an edge upwards. So yeah, 6.5 is what my on the book score will be. This movie, that I do feel there's a lot of mess that I feel like it needed a clearer direction, where I feel like they kind of threw stuff at the wall and just saw what sticks with audiences to go on forward. Especially with like Elizabeth's character of just, oh, she's a strong, adventurous woman with swords, but then there's this intrigue with the romance line, and just her character kind of just felt all over the place and just muddled. And it's really telling that the characters that I liked most were not the main characters, and Will has some development with his father's storyline, but it's still a little bit of flat. I mean, he doesn't have as much screen time. But, you know, I'm really drawn to Davy Jones. I'm drawn to Jack Sparrow. And then even just some of the side characters. I know Norrington had issues with being different from the first, but I did like to at least kind of interpret where he came from. And just also the little bit of political intrigue with the East India Company. And also the slapstick elements are not really my personal taste. I think they did go too far on some of those scenes, even though, you know, they were fun. All those are kind of forgivable for me, but really the hinge of the matter, or one more thing, the CG was really good for Davy Jones and some of the real focus points. There's some backgrounds that were really spotty, like really gave me like Charlton Heston vibes almost with Parting the Red Sea. I think the first one was Jack Sparrow in the background, the sky of the storm when he got out of the coffin was just like, okay, that looks pretty good.
I'd agree.
And then there was a shot of the Kraken kind of first coming up in the background. And it was like, it's just really like blurry and didn't seem rendered fully.
Yeah.
So there were some of those that you really missed the practical aspects of it. So especially from the first, what they did, the CG is really kind of really holds its own even today. So what was the linchpin for me taking it down a peg, and goes back to my original impression when I first saw it in the theater, is it feels like this movie is completely predicated on the existence of a third movie, and that's inexcusable in my book. There are so many loose ends that do not get addressed or tied up in this movie that if the third movie was never made, this movie would be so frustrating to watch and not have anything happen to the storyline.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
And where we talked about the Two Towers in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, where first you have source material that was, you know, a trilogy to begin with, and there's enough substantial action and character growth and development that happens in the Two Towers. And it was intended to be a trilogy. They knew there was going to be a third movie to wrap things up.
Yeah.
This, we got The Curse of the Black Pearl, which is a standalone movie, wrapped up neatly in the first one. And then we come to this movie, and it's like, oh, we're making a trilogy now on, you know, part 2. And just all this stuff it just felt like a bridge to nowhere. Like since, you know, if you haven't seen the third movie, then you're kind of lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can't stand alone. And it was just really disappointing to not have its own movie with its own internal character growth. It was just kind of scattered. It felt like a Disney attempt to be a crowd pleaser for kind of action and entertainment. And we'll throw in some points of heroic female empowerment and a little bit of father-son bonding, and they just tried to like check some boxes, and they didn't really tie it together. It looked good. It was fun to watch. Some parts were too cheesy, but just the fact that the story didn't come to its own, it didn't make its own way in the world.
Yeah.
It's just what really kills it for me. Yeah. 6.5.
All right, 6.5. Let's move on to the next score then. Arena with an 8.5.
What?
So the thing is, I gave the first one a 10, and this one, I do have a lot of problems with it, but I think it could have been an easy fix. So that being said, I think the one thing that could have been changed is basically how they revamped all the characters. I think the characters are the weakest part about this movie.
Make me look bad.
And it's I think everyone's scoring is perfectly valid. I just feel like I end up being
I'm just kidding.
I end up being a lot more lenient on these movies, except for Neverending Story 2. Like that one can go die somewhere. But this movie, I think the quality of the film is great. I love the attention to detail as far as trying to find, you know, the perfect setting, trying to maintain that happy pirate adventure theme. And I love the incorporation of this villain, Davy Jones. I think he's fantastic. I love that. But I feel like they start a problem and they don't answer it. So kind of going along with what AJ is saying, they start all of these issues, this plot drama, and they really don't leave you with this feeling that it's going to be answered. And there aren't a lot of payoff moments. The only payoff moments are these big, overwhelming CG encounters with the Kraken or Davy Jones' crew. And they neglect these characters. They kind of just rely on the fact that everyone knows them and everyone loves them, and they don't really develop them in a way that makes sense or is satisfying. The thing that I love so much, and I'm going to keep bringing this up, the thing I love so much about Lord of the Rings is there are so many characters that you value because of their noble nature and their unique character and perspectives that they bring to the plot of the film. Mm-hmm. In this, they just kind of throw the jumble of characters back into the mess without really seeing much trajectory in their arc, other than maybe Will finding his father, which I did like. Now, let me alter this scenario just for a second, and you might see like just how much better this could have been. And for me, I wouldn't have had Norrington thrown out of there at all. He shouldn't have been, shamed the way he was. Mm-hmm. I think he should have still been Commodore in this second one.
Agreed.
I don't think that Elizabeth should have gone off on her own. That doesn't make sense. I think this story would have been more interesting if you paired Norrington and Elizabeth together to try and, throw themselves into the mess to get Will back.
That is interesting.
And I think that would have presented more poignant conversations between the two of them, where she is sort of grappling with this idea that she wants this life of piracy, but Norrington represents that, established nobility and reminding her what is, right about her way of life and how her position actually has more power than she realizes. And I think that there would have been just a little more character development in that scenario. And I think his character, what bothered me is that he needed closure. He needed some kind of closure with his character because I just don't get it in this one. I understand it's a bridging film, but it just doesn't make sense to have him back in the mess as just a ruined figure.
Yeah.
Anyway, 8.5, because I know there was a lot of work that went into this, and it could have been fixed just by rearranging some of these characters and giving them a little more focus.
I'll slightly push on your score, just slightly. You can keep the 8.5. Mm-hmm. Do you think that the work that was put into this results in a film that you would, if you didn't know that the work that went into it results in an 8.5?
Yeah.
I guess. Okay.
I think that I still genuinely enjoyed it. I think why I received it so negatively, and I have to kind of put this aside when I rate it, is the fact that I love and cherished the characters from the first one, but then they kind of felt butchered by this. And if I hadn't known the first film, I might have enjoyed this better. It's just kind of the disappointment that results in the 8.5. I feel like they didn't care enough about those characters for
just keeping them consistent,
yeah,
I guess.
And I think logically their trajectories sort of make sense, but they're kind of weakly built.
The thing is, I agree with you. I think they do care about the characters. Mm-hmm. They just didn't know where to take them.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or it's just like they're trying to give them interesting twists and turns.
Yeah.
But they don't completely honor that.
I almost feel like
guess.
they just took the cheap way out and just kind of did the shotgun approach and just, like I said, throw it on the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I made this analogy before, but it's almost like someone prepared a dish and they seasoned it perfectly. Everyone loved it, but the feedback you got is that everyone liked it. Oh, I seasoned it this way. I'm just going to season it more. But that ruins it.
This is one of those movies, though, I should state, the people writing this film, they're actually very good writers. What are their names? Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio. Mm-hmm. They had such a limited time to complete the script for both of these films, that they were just working their asses off tooth and nail to try and finish it in time, and it was kind of just a script on the fly for these movies.
Well, then
It
that
was just
kind of
shot
makes
back
sense.
to back, 2 and 3.
Yeah,
Yes.
they were. So I think I have to give it an 8.5 because it still has a little of that fun adventure, but I just feel like they really dropped the ball on some of my favorite parts about the first. So
Yeah. So let's get to our final review.
David, an 8. I mean, we've touched on so many things that it's not worth delving into that much, but a lot of what I based my score off of was actually things that Irina has brought up many times, and a lot of that is kind of the heart aspect of it. What did my heart tell me to kind of score this movie? There's so many reasons to fault this movie. You can fault it for so many things.
Kind of like, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor.
yeah,
Really?
Kind of like that one.
shoehorn that
Which
in?
you gave a what now?
It was a half point below this score.
Nothing. No one's gonna know.
David, what does your heart tell you about
My
Dead Man's
heart
Chest?
tells me that it's an 8 because I love this movie. When I first saw this movie, I loved it, and I've watched it many times since, and I loved it. And it wasn't until critically reviewing it that it started getting more diminished and more I heard from other people, and it kind of almost made me sad. It was just like,
Yes.
oh, there are reasons that this isn't as great.
I had to think.
I guess I'm guessing I'm not as intelligent as AJ or
I'm
Noah.
joking. I love it.
And I gotta be better at critiquing things and nitpicking holes and
Nitpicking
and not just enjoying a movie for how they made it. And it's clear enough to understand what's happening in the plot. And if you can relax and let go and enjoy just this fun, adventurous pirate movie,
Yeah, forget the
Then-
first movie.
it's even in conjunction to the first movie. It is actually really fun to watch. And if you are a person who likes adventure movies, this will fit right along the first one.
Right along.
Yeah, that's why I had a pause there. I knew somebody was.
He
you a
was
person-
nitpicking holes.
Are you a person that's upset by loose ends?
No.
Okay, so that explains it.
yeah.
Okay, this movie might have loose ends, but you can at the point of watching this movie, even in the theater, I knew that there was a third one. So I was like, because they filmed them together, and I knew that even if I had problems with certain loose ends, there's a chance that that's going to get closed up.
Yeah.
I just took this as a middle chapter, and I know it does not stand alone. It
Yeah.
definitely
It
does not.
doesn't.
I would never decide to just watch Dead Man's Chest. Like, oh, I'm in the mood to watch Dead Man's Chest.
Oh, that makes
no,
one of us, because I would.
okay, but I would. It is anytime I watch Pirates of the Caribbean: Curse of the Black Pearl, I do have that internal debate with myself. Like, hey, do I want to watch the trilogy? I think I kind of do.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna watch all three of them.
I want to follow this up.
So I think that says something. Like,
Yeah.
I know it has loose ends, but it is loose ends with the promise of closing them.
Yeah.
It does.
And it makes that promise, and it delivers with the third one. They do close a lot of these plot threads.
Yeah.
So
Well, and this is a movie I would and have gone out of my way to watch by itself. It's not one
Yeah.
that I thought, maybe I should watch the first one and then the third one right after it. No, it's
Just
like,
didn't-
I like this movie. I'm going to watch it.
Just didn't come off like blatantly to me, I guess, especially when as a kid I didn't know there's a third one coming out. Like, with Deathly Hallows, there's part 1 and part 2. With
Yeah.
Mockingjay is part 1 and part 2. Like, I just didn't
Yeah.
know that with this.
What
And
about Divergent?
I don't actually know.
I can't wait till we cover Divergent,
No,
because
I
they never
didn't
got
know
the
that.
part 2. They never got the part 2.
They intend on
I
having
mean,
part
isn't
two.
that basically the Hunger Games? It's YA.
It's the Hunger
Not to say
Games,
it's-
but terrible.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw one of them out of order, and
It didn't matter. It didn't
I didn't need another one.
affect anything.
Yeah.
So this is weird, but mentioning Divergent makes me want to bump my pirate score up a little bit.
That's what did it.
Yes.
like
Just
the thing is, because I was
mentioning
thinking,
Divergent?
what would I give those movies? And I was like, oh, I know what I'd give those movies. That is too close to Dead Man's Chest. Like, I'll bump it up.
Okay,
you
I'm
gotta
inviting you to rate this movie and not really. I mean, do take into account what you rate other movies, but the criticisms that you mentioned, like, do you feel that the weights of those criticisms bring it to a 5?
Hey, actually,
It's a really good point because I have to come.
AJ, what do you have
always have
Noah's?
trouble.
Do you have Noah's previous scores in front of you? Like, what other movies did he give in
'cause
the 4, 5, 6 range?
I had like no trouble with this. Then this one, like, just this movie
right.
upset me.
So I'll work up.
Watching it, but
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen at a 3. King Arthur 2004 at a 5. 28 Weeks Later at a 5.
yeah, this has to be a 6.
Narnia, Voyage of the Dawn Treader at a 6. And then Neverending
Okay.
Story at a 6.5.
I hate myself.
Same score as King Arthur 2004.
I have to give it a 6 because like
And this is the same
thing
like genre.
yeah,
Yep.
because like
You're upping it a whole point?
the main thing is that this movie offends me personally because I love the first one so much, but it is a better movie than King Arthur 2004. So like,
And that's the same genre, I guess.
yeah.
We give David a hard time for the rewatchability aspect, but I do think it's a valid aspect of a movie. And this movie does have the rewatchability aspect.
Well,
Yes.
especially for a film in this genre, this kind of film. That's kind of what it was
Gosh.
made
popcorn
for.
movie.
Yeah.
Okay, I need to pinch myself before I rate movies because this has happened the past 2 where it's like, ooh, but actually I want to upgrade it.
You're emotionally driven. That's why.
Well,
Yeah.
you did upgrade it from a 3.
yeah.
You went from a 3 to like a
No,
6.
okay. So here's the thing. The 3 is not my the 3 was not my genuine like first thought.
That was your emotions.
That was my emotions. I was mad at this movie for the decisions.
Noah, try using the rubric that I made, and just
Yeah,
you don't have to stick with that
yeah,
score.
I should.
Try putting those numbers in and see how it aligns with things, and see if it makes sense to you.
Yeah,
So-
And then
Okay,
you
I'm
can go from there.
One
do
final
that.
chance to change it, and this is set in stone. How do you feel about Dead Man's Chest?
I'll put it at a 6.
Okay, 6.
I'll put it at a 6.
All right. Got
Like
a 6.
I'm still the lowest, but I don't think it's beyond.
I think that's
justifiable.
fine. I
All
think
right.
you're
All right,
fine there.
AJ,
So,
have you crunched
with
the
that-
numbers?
Yeah, so with that change, our group average is a 7.3 for Dead Man's
Okay.
Chest, which ties it for 11th place, so middle of the pack with World War Z,
All right.
All right.
which is underneath Prince Caspian and above 28 Days Later and John Carter.
That's fair. That is perfectly fair for
This
Dead
is a
Man's
better
Chest.
movie than Caspian.
Actually,
In your opinion.
I don't know. Actually,
all of ours, honestly.
a debate can be made that they're about the same quality.
I like Prince Caspian. And
Yeah,
I'm not
exactly.
saying this movie's
Like,
better or worse.
Prince
but I like-
Caspian's not a terrible movie. It's not
Yeah.
amazing, but it's not terrible.
I think that when I was rating this film, I found that it was falling in line with some of the Narnia films. But I think what had me push this one above is the fact that while I do enjoy the Narnia films, I would almost always choose to watch this one first
Yeah.
before that. And I don't know if it's just because of the world or there's some more of an appeal adventure wise.
Yeah, it feels grander, a broader
Yeah.
world.
Yeah, so I think that's why I had to bump it above
Yeah.
those.
So I'm perfectly fine with this average of 7.3
So
because my
I-
score was 7.5.
Okay, so Irina, I agree with you, but I think a point can be made that we in general, first of all, like the characters from the first one better than any of the characters in Narnia, hands down.
Yeah.
And then you can also make the counterpoint that the second one just kind of flubs what the first one does. So you have to
almost
diminish
as
it.
if the acting
down
in this
to
is
that
better,
level.
the CGI is better,
Like-
and the plot is better. It's weird.
Yeah.
I don't think the acting's better in the second one.
Oh, it's
Anyway.
substantially better in this one.
No, it is not.
Then Narnia?
Oh, no,
you
then the
kidding?
first Pirates is what I thought you were
No,
saying.
no, I'm saying from Narnia. Any of the
Yeah.
Narnia movies.
Okay.
Yeah, Pirates has some really good acting in general. I'll give them that.
Okay, so, yeah, we stand at 7.3 with Pirates of the Caribbean, The Dead Man's Chest, or just Dead Man's Chest, sorry. Are y'all ready to get into the franchise side of this?
Sure.
Oh yeah, we
Conversation.
have that part too.
Let's do it.
So, critics. Let's talk about what critics thought of this film first. Rotten Tomatoes, this movie had a 53%
Oh dang.
with an audience score of 72.
Wow, we're pretty close.
Metacritic, 53 from critics with an audience score of 7.2. So exactly the
We
same.
were very close, actually.
And IMDb, 7.3. So exactly
Wow,
our
okay.
score.
It's all Noah's plan.
Noah raising his score got us right in the middle of the pack.
Yep.
So, y'all ready to
Yeah.
guess the box office of this film?
Sure.
Budget?
So the budget, it is officially reported as $225 million, but there are other reports that show it could be upwards of $300 million.
Wow.
This movie was known to have a budget that ballooned during production, so I do think it was closer to the $300 million mark.
What was the final from the first movie again? How much did they make?
I don't have that on hand.
I have a guess.
It
We don't normally have
was-
that, but
It was like 300 domestically and 700 worldwide or something like that.
yeah, I'm thinking it's 700 to 800 million for this movie.
For the first one,
But I'll guess I'll
Second.
guess a 750.
653 or 654 for the
That
first
was
one.
the
54
total?
worldwide.
750 total for me.
And both of them are summer movies. I think the first one was June. This one's July.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So off of that 225 million to 300 million budget, what do y'all think this movie did worldwide box office?
750.
750?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say 600.
Okay. AJ?
Seeing it has, I actually went to the theater and saw it. It was probably pretty hyped up. I'd say
800? Ooh. Irina?
700.
700. This movie did nearly 1.1 billion.
Dang.
It is the highest grossing movie in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise.
Whoa.
It got a big bump from the popularity of the first movie.
Oh, I'm sure.
Which had huge DVD sales and merch sales, and just it became a brand.
Yeah.
And so yeah, this movie benefited from a lot of hype.
Yeah.
And people liked the movie. Like, this was not a poorly received movie from an audience standpoint. So yeah,
there are people saying I've got a jar of dirt left and right.
Yes.
It's true.
You're
one of them.
Everyone was fully on that Jack Sparrow like hype train, where it was just
Yep.
like anything that Jack Sparrow does is like no wrong, you know. Just watching him. Yeah, I remember a lot of hype around this film, and I was only like 16 years old. But yeah, it was the biggest thing of that year for me, and it makes sense that it was a massive hit. Mm-hmm. So yeah, no problems here franchise wise. This guaranteed. I mean, they already had a sequel in the can, so it really didn't affect the franchise in any way other than to reaffirm the popularity of the brand.
It seemed like this movie guaranteed like all of the rest of the movies.
Yeah, I honestly think this wrote the check for like the next 3 movies. You're right.
Yeah, seriously.
It's
did.
curious that it ballooned the budget because aren't back-to-back shot movies like intended to decrease budget?
Yeah, the thing is, this is weird. I don't know how they're able to parse the budgets of the two, but I did look at the third one, and it does have a different budget than this one. So I'm assuming that this one was more expensive because this one had the most production behind it,
Right,
where they just had
CG.
to set up like all the. I don't know. This was the whole. They had to do all the scouting and all the just setting up of the sets, and
Yeah.
I don't know how they allocate the various
Delineate, yeah.
costs, but yeah, this one was. I think this one was the biggest, just because all of the setup of everything, and Gore Verbinski was very adamant at just getting to the hardest to find locations, and the just. I heard the actual transportation of a lot of the stuff cost a lot because he had such remote locations that it was just hard to get anywhere. Yeah, and they had actually there was one point where this movie they thought that the production might get canceled because of just how much the budget was ballooning.
Gosh.
Which is I'm glad that didn't happen because
And I'm sure they are too. $1.1 billion.
That's crazy.
yeah,
That is
this movie actually faced a lot of production trouble, where like unfinished scripts and
Production companies like, we made the right choice.
yeah.
But I really do. I was watching all the special features for this movie, and I've said that like 5 million times already. But this is one of the films where they really do display all the warts of filmmaking on the special features. They exposed that they had script troubles. They exposed that the budget was getting out of control, and that the actors cost a lot to hire, and that just everything. You get a full sense of the production of this movie, and
Yeah.
I miss special features like that because you watch special features today, and it's just like they all paint this
Puff
rosy
piece.
picture of how everyone
Yeah.
just loved their experience, and
It was a
just
wonderful ride, and
Yeah.
I love being a part of this world. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, you get I do recommend watching the special features if you have them for Dead Man's Chest because they're pretty informative and extensive.
Yeah.
So
I like how they did the
Especially-
ship cracking in
yeah.
half with the Kraken.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
love that.
was
they
cool.
did this. They also actually did build both the Dutchman and the Black Pearl for this. Those are actual ships,
Which is
really
awesome.
cool.
Although
Yeah.
they changed the sail plan on the Dutch or the Black Pearl from the first movie, but
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
They used a different frame for this movie, for that ship. So that's probably has something to do with it. But yeah, this movie did not affect its franchise in a negative way at all. It is the most successful film in the franchise, not to spoil the future.
Well, now I know.
Except for you did.
Yeah, it's one of 2 films in the franchise to gross over $1 billion worldwide. I'll let y'all guess which one is the other one. But yeah, do y'all have any last words on Pirates of the Caribbean: The Dead Man's Chest?
It's a fun ride.
Fun ride.
I liked it.
Went from a 3 to a 6.
Yeah, I did not say
was quite a ride.
3 as my permanent
I'm just
score.
joking. I'm just joking. All right, next week we'll be talking about Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End.
I'm excited.
Yes, it is a big, bloated conclusion to this trilogy.
What conclusion?
hey, those are the words Tia Dalma said at the end, so they put the subtitle over.
Yeah. So you can find us on all podcast apps. Just type in Franchise Killer. We also have a curated list of tracks from the soundtracks of the films that we've covered. Just also type in Franchise Killer on either Spotify or YouTube. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram. Give us a follow. Give us a like. Rate us 5 stars.
Subscribe, man.
Yeah, do whatever you can because
Hit that bell.
yeah, it's hard work putting this podcast together, and we're trying our best to entertain y'all. We're having a good time, of course. But yeah, everything helps. We're just trying to grow this thing. So
Every
if you
little bit.
enjoy it, please, it takes a few seconds just to throw something our way. Anyway, next week, Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. See you guys then.
See ya.
Bye.
No,
again.
you want you to find this because the finding of this finds you incapacitorially finding and or locating in your discovering the detecting of a way to save your dolly bell. Oh, what's her face? Savvy?
That's
Just the savvy at the end.
such a tongue twister. All right, goodbye.
Bye.